And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Um, there is no session number today. This is the end of a bit for us. This is 3.5 years in the making. We get to sit in front of you, and we're done. This is the campaign wrap up for Papihos, and I am so happy that you can come and join us for this. Basically, how this is going to be is everyone gets to relax, maybe have a drink or two. We get to ask each other some questions, talk about the end of the campaign, different things that happened, and how everyone thought about it. Also, a little bit through, we might get into the future of what comes next. As far as I'm aware, people enjoyed playing, and so there might be some stuff in the future, but my mind takes time to like make trauma and shit. So like there might be some shifts in the schedule until something else comes up. But we'll talk about that when we talk about that. First things first. Some people are here, some people are not, and everyone except for me, just like normal, is still in their PNGs. And if you don't know, this is actually a legitimate choice. A lot of people in the group don't actually like to show their faces, and so this was a thing that was made. I forgot how long into the campaign by me, just a thought that I ran with, and it stuck, and this is how we are right now. I believe only 3 out of the 6 of us actually like show their faces constantly on stream.
I think that is the truth, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have the ability to if I wanted to.
It's what it is. Technically I could just try and like send you a webcam in the mail, but I don't know how well that would work.
My corporeal form is not to be witnessed.
It's just their forehead. They just put that on a webcam.
I will get you some actual statistics, because I remember how the PNG thing came to be. We were talking about it, and I brought it up, and I said, "Oh, well, you could make us PNG tubers." And I looked. I got a like a quick link for it to kind of figure out how to do it, because I was thinking about doing it at the time, but I just didn't feel like going through the process. And you're like, "Oh, well, I'll figure it out." So after just bringing up the idea to JC, of his own volition for like 3 weeks, he somehow hooked it up. I don't remember the specifics, but he managed to hook everything up.
Yeah.
And I remember it was because I had to like click like a link or whatever and give permissions.
Everyone had to click a link and give permissions.
And I didn't want to do that, but I
bullied him into doing it.
We made, like, I'm gonna take a quick look, because it was no more than like 30 sessions.
Gotcha. No, but like that's what this is. I didn't have the time to give James and Jazz the option of turning on their webcams for this if they wanted to, but
Oh, I definitely could have.
could have.
I think
that's that's some past tense talk.
I do know that we did lose April before becoming PNG tubers.
Mm-hmm. April was never a PNG.
Was I even alive for PNG tubing? Because I don't think I was.
You are in the age of it. Nime is currently lighting up as your voice comes in.
Oh, yeah.
That's
See,
what it is.
I thought you meant
no,
like...
because there was the other thing of like, of like what we could have done is like you had your webcam up right now, Jazz. Mm-hmm. And I put your webcam over the banner where Nime's thing was.
We went a lot more than 30 episodes without it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not realizing.
Absolutely. No, it was probably around like the halfway-ish point. Maybe a little bit less than that.
The first episode was at 45.
45.
Lord Chaser.
So, under 100 with the PNGs. That's just how it goes.
Love it though.
Oh yeah, it was. I think it brought like a lot of polish to the stream.
Oh
And
yeah.
when we first started, like the stream wasn't. It was really just because like we were at the height of streaming at the time. It was the Renaissance really, and it was just like I have a day I could put out some content, and in a way it kind of became a thing of not everyone that runs a campaign, as long as we have what we have to go off of, they just have memories, they have notes, they have inside jokes between that. But from start to finish, our entire experience was recorded,
Documented.
cataloged, documented,
Clipped.
and clipped, shared with the public. So usually like it was very somber having the campaign end, for sure. 3.5 years is a long time just to have something just kind of end,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all there, it's all documented. You can go see your moments. You could even start from the beginning should you truly wish. I won't, that's a lot of hours to go
There
through.
are a couple of people who have told me that they're just watching through the campaign.
And
Brave men and women.
We could go into to Roll20. I think it'll actually show how long that we've been playing, but like you could just do the math. 133 times.
James and I actually did the math.
We averaged it.
We
really.
averaged it. We didn't do exact math.
It's probably going to be about 740.
Of exact campaign hours, with the average that James insisted was 3 hours per episode. That comes out to...
I would have argued 4, but whatever.
I can do the other
I think
one right
3 is
now as
about
well.
right.
So with 3, it is 399 hours. With 4, it is 532.
Wow.
So, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Because
Okay.
it's a thing of like, of course you can always have those details, but no matter what, the 6 of us have spent hundreds of hours together cultivating this world, and I think that's why it meant so much.
Yeah.
And not to say that other people haven't watched it. Of course, there are people watching right now, but I think if I remember correctly, our high score of individual people watching the stream was 130.
At one time?
Like
the live or?
So the YouTube channel gets a little bit of sway. Regardless of the hemorrhaging that the YouTube channel has done because of D&D, I don't regret it. But 130 people, and so we know that minimum 130 separate individuals have seen this. They haven't seen everything, of course, but your asses have been watched, even by just a little bit.
When you say being watched, it also comes to, I guess this is a part where we like slowly come into questions a bit, is throughout this you have talked about like outside voice that has been voiced to you about how people feel about our actions and things like that. So truly in that aspect of you hearing, critiques and criticisms coming to you from other people, about how many would you say that, like how many, and not just like return people, like how many individuals would you say have reached out to you with actual like comments or like input that you have seen, do you think?
I started counting on my fingers like that would work. I would say lowballing probably like a dozen. Highballing double that. Different people, yeah.
Okay.
That's a lot of people just to be aware.
There's a
of
lot
what we
of
do
people
as a
that have
hobby.
just like had a finger on what we watched, and of course we know, like we all know what the average people watching are. There isn't 20 people watching every session, but there were sometimes 20 people watching a session. Concurrent on Twitch, we got to, I think our highest was like 40 something at one point, and I flipped shit about it after session. And yeah, it's, I don't know, it's it's been something of it became, and it still does hold true, and I've always said it. I've said it on stream, I've said it during the episodes. There is so much about just playing the game that I enjoy, and I would have played through this campaign without there being cameras or recordings or microphones. I did do that with the beta game that we always reference. I don't know how much I've actually referenced it on stream, but all of you guys were aware that there was another Papihos game happening. It's just, it made it so nice that I could share a part, quite literally a part of me, with so many people. And you guys got to share a part of yourselves too, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and I know I've mentioned this to you before, JC. The streaming part of it was never important to me. It was more like the game was the most important part, always.
And I think that helps because there's a bit of it that like I definitely put on for show, thinking about different things, and I don't know, just having this in the background of knowing that people are going to watch it, it mattered. And so, but at the same time, it led to it being, of course, myself and whether I was enjoying it was at the core of it. I wanted to play a game that I enjoyed playing, and then the next immediate thing that mattered was U5. And so it was me always checking in. Every time the cameras turned off, it was always me being like, hey guys, everything chill? You guys like it? And that was a big thing for me. I wanted to make sure that you guys were enjoying the game. And then after that, the third kind of mention of it was you guys being able to give out to the populace, give out to the chat. And so that three-ringed layer kind of helped keep the game together, keep it focused.
The streaming was never the primary focus, but I do think by virtue of having it streamed, we all unconsciously wanted to apply a bit of polish to the way that we played. And when I say polish, I don't mean like, min-maxing roles or doing things like that, but kind of being the character that we were at the time, like slipping into character is something that I feel like we just unconsciously wanted to do a bit more because we were streaming, but also it's just something that it felt right and comfortable at the time. So, streaming was never the beginning of it, but I do feel like at a lot of moments, just unconsciously, we did look at the stream and say, okay, what can we do? But it was never in such a way that we changed anything, just improved things. At least that's the way that I felt about it through a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. We've got a question coming in from chat. Crisper Toast, my good friend, with the campaign ending, with us all finishing up the Papihos campaign, is there going to be D&D in the future? This is actually a question that I'm pretty sure these five are quite interested in, because we've been talking about it, and I've never 100% committed to anything. It was always just me kind of deflecting, being like, "Hey guys, let's get this finished, and then we'll talk about it." But maybe there's chances. we talked some broad concepts. For them, it might have sounded very like specific, but for me, it's broad strokes, broad concepts, and I think I've had a week to think about it. And I still very much so enjoy playing. These, depending, some of these guys might be sick of me, but as far as I know right now, I am planning on making something in the future. And this kind of ties into what I said about the schedule changing just a little bit for right now. Thursday streams on this channel will probably, as far as I know, halt. However, when I'm able to, I'm gonna have a little bit of trouble this month doing that. I've got a couple other things that I'm doing, but I'm going to try and stream in the mornings of Saturday. I'm not pulling these guys into it or anything. It's just gonna be me, maybe doing Baldur's Gate or something close to D&D, maybe playing Helldivers or something else, or just the game that we like to play. Tuesdays are still going to be James and myself doing zombies in a side like that. But I didn't want to. I wanted to make sure from a streaming perspective that Thursday being put on hold for right now doesn't mean less content. But that does come with good news for those of you that like D&D. I am in the works of getting something set up, and the things that I can confirm. Right now, all 5 of these guys have an invite to it. It will be set in the same world, but a different nation. The nation's been heard about quite a bit in the Papihos campaign. Not too much has been done in it. The big thing that I think I'll let go and let it free, Usapate, the Elven
Nice.
campaign. I've talked with these guys about it. They seem to pick up the general concept that I'm beginning to lay the foundation for, and we'll be seeing in there. Which is another very weird, interesting thing. I've had a lot of people, more than I expected, actually, message me about wanting to join. It's a thing right now. Of course, I'm gonna be talking with these 5 lovely people. Alpha's a little non-present right now, but these 5 I've been able to do so much with, and I'm sorry, right now these guys have my attention and priority. There's actually an entire another full cast worth of people trying to take spots right now, and I've told them all the same thing. I haven't I haven't slotted anyone in 100%, but these guys have my priority. They've done so much, been with me for a long time, and haven't quite gotten sick of me yet. But I appreciate it, and no, you are more than welcome to hear all about it and everything, especially what you're putting in chat there, Josh. That can be kept in mind. So, I know that now that I've kind of let it go that Usapate is Usapate is my next plan. Let's pull it back just a little bit.
I mean,
You mean?
should we let them know what we're going to be doing in the meantime, in the interim?
Of course. Is there something happen in the interim? I think there might be someone uniquely qualified to say that, though.
Is that me? Is that my go?
At Jazz.
Yay! Everybody! So, in the meantime, I'm super excited. I am ripping the torch out of JC's hands, and I'm going to be streaming Curse of Strahd. So, we are going from one D&D campaign to the next. I'm going to be running the Curse of Strahd campaign on my own channel. And you guys are all free to come and watch that on the Thursdays. Since JC won't be live, I will be. But yeah.
Same time, same days.
Same time, same days.
I haven't committed to stealing Jazz's stream and just putting it on my own channel. So,
Honestly, if I stream through your channel, I'll do it. I will. I can.
Let's go. See, we got people hyped for it. Thank you, man. But yeah, no, we're not quite done yet, and Jazz is giving me some rest and respite away from that. And
JC gets to be a player instead of a DM.
yeah, and you get to see how bad I am as a player.
I'm so excited.
So, there's not going to be too much that I can say about Usapate because that is turning into the new recipient of the default answer that I've been giving to these 5 people for the last 3.5 years of it's a secret. But Papihos as a nut has been cracked wide open. You guys have gone through, discovered what you're going to discover, gone from level 1 to 20. Some of you gone through multiple characters. And there's a bunch of little fun facts that we've got. I've got first a little fun fact that I wonder if any of you know off the top of your head. I'll give you a couple seconds so that you don't just look it up. But does anyone have a guess on who was the first player character to show up in a rerun thumbnail? And bonus points if you have the episode number.
Was it Rem?
Incorrect.
No.
It was the first.
April?
It was.
Oh shit! Wasn't it fucking?
It was Cecilia or something, and it was episode 7.
You are 1 off. That is damn impressive. It was Gilgamesh who showed up in episode 6. Cecilia was next, I believe, in episode 7. That was hella impressive. Oh my god.
If you got questions about like the YouTube channel, I might be the guy because chat doesn't know this, but I drank a lot of the sessions. And after everyone had went to bed and the lights had died down and it was just me, I would like to go back and kind of like re-up what I had seen and what we had done as we had went along. So if it has anything to do with the playlist, I might be the guy for that.
You might be the guy. But yeah, no, that was 1 off, and everything you said about Cecilia was correct. She does appear next in episode 7. I don't know. Tempted to be like, good job for that.
Yeah, I was off.
But yeah, no, it's the kind of big thing about it, of doing it live on Twitch and then porting it onto YouTube, is it gave me honestly it's given me 2 general ways to show the game to people, and it depends on whether I have the grit and mental fortitude to do it in a third or fourth way. Even if I'm able to do the third way, the fourth way will come naturally, but of like cutting them down and such, because especially in the early games, we got better at talking, I'll say, after a while. But that's how we do. So I've got I'll be having a couple questions for you. We'll be going through questions every once in a while, but just want to let you guys know how this goes. If chat has a question that pops up, their question will be next in priority. Chat has also there's been a member of chat that has requested to be referred to as Chad. That's okay. Chat. And but for right now, I do know that a lot of you have D&D questions, Papihos questions, insults to throw at me, and so I'm gonna open up the floor generally to you guys to chat. And just like I do in D&D, if it gets a little quiet, I've got a couple questions myself for you guys.
All right, I've got a question,
Hit me with it.
and I'm sure this is not surprising to you at all. Roxy level class.
Roxy started off as a level 3 rogue thief subclass.
Fucking called it.
Roxy ended the campaign as, I believe it was level 5 or 6, still all rogue.
Wow.
Mhm.
5 or 6. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What about Barris?
Barris is a level 15 evocation wizard.
I had a feeling she was a wizard, but that's all I had.
I thought Barris was a sorcerer. Not
Nope.
gonna lie to you, Chief.
She had a metric assload of spells in her back pocket.
Evocation is such an odd choice for bears.
It is because Barris has a backstory that wasn't delved into too much. She did not choose her subclass. Her family did.
Was she ever an adventurer, or was she just like a bookworm?
So
She was at the time she had those thief tools.
Barris
She did.
Barris
Find those.
Barris has actually quite an extended backstory to her. She didn't really want to talk about it, but she would have if you guys had pressed, but you guys were respectful and kind of left it alone, and it actually would crack open a kind of wide nut. And, you know, fuck it, it'll make Usapate maybe a little bit more interesting to you guys. Does anyone remember what Barris's last name is?
Oh.
No, not a fucking clue.
Most of us didn't have last name.
Barris was referred to, and there's a reason most of you don't know her last name. She was either never referred to as her last name, or the bounty hunters, Gil's crew, referred to her as her last name once or twice.
I was seeing
I don't
red at the
think we
time. I
spoke
didn't
to
think
them
about it.
often enough.
Mhm.
We didn't speak to them because the first instant we had of them was Project Napalm. We just dropped on them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Two
even
of
if
them
we
were
had
dead before we spoke.
overheard
Mhm.
them say that name, at least me personally, if I had overheard that, I'd be like, I don't know who that is.
Well, and it would have minimum allowed Nime to make a history check.
Ooh.
Oh.
Because her last name was Relin.
Damn.
Barris Relin. And Nime, let's assume that you passed that
that.
history check, or perchance Zex got a little bit nosy and researched it during your guys' downtime.
We'd be doing that.
You would have found a last name of Relin in the history books. A royal family that hailed from Usapate and was subsequently dissolved and replaced with the Republic of Usapate when the queen-to-be, princess at the time, disappeared. Barris has had a very interesting backstory.
What, she like immigrated to Eleonora and then disappeared into the rest of Papihos?
She's a runaway. A very old and had believed she had gotten away with it runaway. Her
This
shop was
princess the whole time.
her
Got away with
her
it.
shop
Damn.
was filled with different types of magic sensory spells and things like that, and she always had a necklace that she wore underneath her dresses that was anti-divination magic. It worked against you guys, though, until one of them had taken it off of her. Because you never know when a wizard has an offensive weapon and jewelry.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wizards be that way.
wizards do be doing that.
Wizards do be doing that. And so she, like, it holds no actual weight. I would say weight is the wrong thing. She holds no real titles anymore. The royal family has been dissolved and replaced, and it's quite old news. She had well and truly gotten away with it, but her parents still lived, and you were to find out if you had actually gone to Eleonora, one, whether it was the council of the Republic of Usapate or her still living parents that had sent bounty hunters out to find her. But you guys absolutely destroyed the bounty hunters before they arrived in Eleonora.
So, other than Gil's old group being rough, she wasn't necessarily in any danger, it sounds like.
No, she was just gonna disappear. Either to the council or to her parents.
I did always find it odd that slavers would kidnap a wizard.
They're not. They participated in the slave trade, but they were well and above everything else mercenaries. Gil had done a lot of other work, and when they first participated in slavery was when Gil dipped. That was the closing point. Gil did murders and bondsman stuff and all that just fine. It was the actual subjugation of life that where he drew the line. Gil's an interesting character. This entire campaign was kind of a bit of an arc in its own way for Gilgamesh, of him realizing that, because he came from a bit of a philosophy, it seemed, of no life matters, it's just what the lives are able to do matters, and being able to end up with one, fighting isn't always the answer, killing isn't always the answer, sometimes soft words are required, but also the inherent value of just living. That's thanks to you guys. Also the end of the world, but, you know, whatever. You guys.
I mean, I'm cooler than the end of the world, so...
Mm-hmm.
Gil's also a very interesting character in the sense of that when he first arrived, we had a lot of problems with this character that just... interpersonal problems that just kind of stemmed from that philosophy. And there was a breaking point. And that breaking point, you know, I guess we can talk on later. But after that, and when Gil began to improve, Gil improved but didn't change, is the thing. You know, Gil, from the beginning to the end, has always been, you know, gruff, to the point, I don't care, why shouldn't we? Like, even though he improved, his core fundamentals didn't change, which is something that, you know, in an arc, people, like, they kind of re-evaluate or in some ways discard some core tenets they don't need anymore. Gil didn't do that.
No.
Gil kept what he knew, reshaped it to what the world, like, what he wanted to put out into the world, but he kept, like, what was at the base, which is, like...
He kept the foundation, but shifted the perspective.
He did. And it was very interesting to see. It's like, Gil was always an asshole, but he became more of a, I guess, the lovable asshole. I wouldn't call Gil lovable. Gil's an interesting character, just from, like, I think one of our, like, a very, very interesting character. Like, I'm pretty sure there's some Gil stands out there, like, oh, I have, like, literary, like, concept shit of it.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I don't have that because I was doing my own thing at the time.
Hey, each of you had people that liked you the best, so take that how you will.
I mean, Suna got the most. So,
Suna,
you know.
Suna definitely did run away, especially near the end with most of the appreciation. But everyone had people that were rooting for you.
Like, I know I've probably touched on this on the end of streams at different points, but like at the time that I created Suna for the game, it was kind of when the party was the most fractured.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I was like, okay, like we as people don't hate each other, but like I don't know how the party can continue on the way that we have been. And I think, I think she was a great catalyst for, that change within the party as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Suna very much was the shift from we're mercenaries to like a found family kind of thing.
And that was intentionally done. And it was something that Suzanne and I talked over a little extensively, actually. And Suzanne realized that April was one of those points of contention. Like, they weren't absolved from what everyone else in the cast was doing.
Oh, I think like a couple sessions before the switch, April shot Gil in the back.
Yep.
I was like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be doing this.
Nah.
But like, I don't know how to like 180 the character now.
No.
When we're already this far in, it'd be easier to introduce someone new.
Yeah. And that was a thing of like, luckily, session zeros weren't something that we did with this. And it's probably something that I should have done, but also we were starting with 3 people, not including me, and then gained 2 more as we went. Now, Gilgamesh came very fast afterwards, but, luckily it was just of how we all knew each other that we could kind of vet each other before D&D came.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I know a lot of people had their moments where they thought that they had gotten to my wit's end and we're gonna become an empty spot on the game board.
Oh, I did it a couple of times.
So
I won't lie to chat. In the back rooms, it happened a couple of times on my end. At least 4. About 4 good times.
But it's a thing of we came together for just also the purpose of the story and all of this, but at the core of it, we wanted to play D&D.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kept us going. And I think that's what will keep us going, is we want to play D&D.
Hit us with another trivia question.
Want another trivia question?
Yeah, always.
Throughout the campaign, I always tried to keep the thumbnail titles interesting, prevalent and meaningful to the arc, but most importantly, switch out which characters were being shown. However, there are 2 distinct times that I failed to do this for story reasons. Which 2 characters were repeated in the thumbnails of videos due to being irreversibly integral to the story at that time?
I mean, I feel like the simple answer is like Rem and Suna, but I feel like that's a trap.
Was
Mike,
Gil one of them?
Suna has to be one.
I was gonna get Suna and Gil.
Yeah, that's what I would
It
guess.
might be Suna and Zax.
Pointing to the Temple of the Brine and Dakaria.
Ding, ding, ding. The first one to do it was Gilgamesh going through the Dakaria arc, where he appears 4 times in a row in thumbnails. not to be not to be left behind, a couple months, or I should say, about 3 months later, during the Temple of the Brine arc, Suna appears as the primary character in the thumbnail 4 times in a row as well. Half a point fun fact, Rem is the only character to appear 4 times in a single thumbnail.
What do you mean in a single?
That's right.
What do you?
I forgot.
As
Video.
as
do you mean
episode
it's a single-
106, Rem appears in a mirage of 4 separate characters.
Oh yeah. Which one you said?
106.
106. I remember this because I'm like, what did you do to me?
I thought the one where you said, "What did you do to me?" was the one where I made your eyes really wide and completely white.
You did mess up my eyes.
Milk white.
I think one of my favorite has to be like 67. 67, I think, is one of my favorites.
Total party kill.
Yeah, and I'm like, why did I get this one? But I was the one that started drumming up Project Napalm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's yeah. Honestly, I think that's probably the closest to clickbait of any of the titles, just total party kill, because a total party kill kind of did happen. It was just to the other party.
Well, we killed
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
I still hold a point of contention behind how that ended, and I will ask, I guess now as we're going into it, because we've been talking about Gil, what happened to the people that were in jail after like the castle got swarmed and destroyed? Where are they? Because there were 3 of them left. It was the fighter whose arm was mangled,
Yep.
Anil, which we
sorcerer.
called Lil Ann,
And little Ann,
and then
the tiefling.
the
The
tiefling
tiefling
whose name
sorcerer.
was something close to like Nuggets. I
Nurgle,
don't.
I think.
Yeah, it was not a good name.
Didn't they die?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking the
They
question.
were in
What
prison.
happened?
That's why
They were in prison.
They were
'Cause
in
Zex
prison.
wouldn't let me kill them.
Because Zex would not let you kill them. So there was a bit of a jailbreak that happened during the Festival of Fire. Not immediately, but you know, when large explosions and such happened outside, and then hours went by with no one coming to check on them. They're talented people.
I mean, they were what? They were about our level, weren't they?
They were, I think,
At least at the time we met them.
at the time you met them, I think they might have been,
I think they were a little bit ahead of us.
they might have been like 1 or 2 levels ahead of you guys. I wanted you guys
Oh,
to
that's a ra-
specifically have to be very strategic if you did go after them.
I will say that was one of the roughest fights
Oh
of the
yeah.
entire
It was
campaign.
Fine.
Because I got to
There-
play as
that's-
player characters.
That second one, it almost went south real quick.
Mhm.
A lot of
Yeah.
rolls had to be like, and it was specifically because of that sorcerer.
Yeah, those 2 fights
It-
were
I-
some of the roughest fights we've had to do.
I do feel bad because it is very obvious when you go back and look at fights how comfortable I am with the sorcerer class. It is not even close when it compared to other classes how dangerous I am with a sorcerer. Anytime a sorcerer class was involved, you guys were having issues. I don't think there was a single easy sorcerer fight that you guys went through.
So
No,
they had-
the
they
2
had a-
Gordos fights were also pretty awful.
the
Mm.
Gordos fight was the worst ascended fight by
So-
far.
And so that comes into the we can wheel that into the question for the discussion of, with the 7 Ascended, there were, depending on how you thought about it, 7 or 14 fights, but we'll keep it at 7. Who was the most difficult? Who do you think was the easiest? And then because they don't have to be the same, who is the most annoying?
Gordos,
start
I
with
feel was the
difficult.
hardest for us,
Yes.
for sure.
Um,
Either
Kuta was
Kalung
the
or
easiest.
Kauta were the easiest, yeah.
Kauta for sure.
Solozi kind of got bodied though.
Solozi did get really
Like-
fucked up. Like, we
like-
kind of didn't. It wasn't even that big a deal. And you
Solosi's-
guys were down a person for half that fight.
Mm-hmm.
Solozi's first phase was kind of garbage because of like just monk garbage. I'm assuming is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, the Sphinx portion got bodied. It was done and dusted.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it was also because they would only focus on one person at a time, and it wasn't Rem. We just cruised through it.
That's
It
fair.
was Gil.
Yeah, they focused on Gil. Gil ate everything. Nime came in with the steel chair, and then it just kind of folded up, and we were done.
And I feel like we were the most scared for that fight, not for Solozi, but for it. We always had assumed that Lackham would help,
Yes.
and she really didn't.
She didn't. Her simulacrum showed up, but
Yeah, but they didn't do anything.
no.
Like,
Well, it's
we
'cause
kind of dealt with it.
They fired off like a disintegrate, and then Rem turned it off. It's like, I'm not dealing with that. Which, oddly enough, I think turning off the simulacrum happened twice, where it's just
Yes.
like, I'm not doing that.
In terms of the most annoying fight, it was Lackham.
And the most annoying, I think, for me, might have been Zavidnia.
Because of her web walking.
It was a lot of moving, like Lackham flying, like anything that flies was a nightmare. But Zavidnia didn't fly, and that's what made it super annoying. And I think what made it super annoying afterwards is that like we didn't want to kill all those people, but we just kind of had to.
Yeah.
And it's very awkward to say we had to kill all those people, but we were not gonna get done what we needed to get done if we kept,
Putting out the fires.
chasing her around like playing tag. It wasn't gonna work that way.
You want to talk about freaking annoying? Power word killed.
You were the only character
Twice!
our word killed, and it
Twice.
happened twice. And it was even funnier the second time.
I was so mad. I was so mad. I was pissed that it happened a second time. The first time, understandable, but a second time.
You
Didn't
also
it almost-
Man.
Didn't it almost go to me the first time?
It did.
Or was I wrong on that?
It did, and then someone said something. I was like, "Fine, I'll roll." And then I think
Nope.
Jazz quite literally was the one that yelled out, "No, don't roll!"
Please don't.
And then it landed
Yeah.
on. It
You
landed
also have
on
to keep in
Nime.
mind, Nime was a force to be reckoned with. Like the first phase of the Gordos fight, Nime
What a
committed
menace.
crimes. Like, let's talk.
Not go to war. She
Yeah.
committed many war crimes.
It's like I could understand it being really annoying to be power word killed, but also you stabbed a dude 20 times in like 6 seconds.
I
That's
think in
true.
about 6
JC,
seconds,
was Nime the most annoying character to deal with?
No, I don't think. All of you were annoying in your own ways, and all of you were lovely in your own ways.
What was the most annoying thing each of us ever did?
It was the
Oh, I'm
most
so excited
annoying
for this.
thing each of you did. I think for the big part, I think it was. See, the thing is, I don't care that much about combat. I care more about the roleplay aspect. So there's like things that happen in roleplay that made me more upset than anything in combat. There was Rem's bullheadedness got under my skin a couple times. And that speaks volumes about his strength of character and spirit. The thing is, it's the same thing with Zex too, and they're opposite, like two sides of the same coin coming from opposite directions in the same way, and crash landing immediately into each other. And it got on, like, it bugged me a bit, but that's how the characters roll. And that's what makes them good. Gilgamesh. Oh god, I'm trying to even think. It's like I have trouble like finding things that I legitimately didn't like about your guys' characters.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
was gonna
good
say,
thing.
that's good to hear at least.
Nime, fucking pick a guy, you know.
Pick a guy.
Damn.
Jeez.
Jesus
Damn.
Christ.
I did it at the end.
You did
I
at
did
the
it
end.
No, you literally said at O'Brien's resurrection, I can't wait to get to know you better. Touched his face and never spoke to him again.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's how Nime rolls,
That's
bro.
how you ghost someone.
That's how Nime rolls.
Damn.
And you died? That's cringe.
You died. Cringe.
Look,
Cringe.
when I die, pick another guy. That's how we fucking go, okay? We cycled through 3 times.
And we
Rip.
it's the thing, she always knew how it was gonna end. She just didn't know how she was gonna get him over here.
Mhm.
But then the
Yeah.
downtime happened, and she's like, "Oh, wait a minute."
This is
Like,
perfect.
Oh,
she,
yeah.
she had art of the dude.
She
cooked up
just
before he
wanted
even
to flirt
got
with a
to him.
character until he got here.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're filling voids.
To be
She's
fair,
fucking traumatized,
to be fair,
bro.
I realize that that's just kind of a character concept that Jazz enjoys, and so I'm
Mhm.
fully expecting her to do it again for the next campaign.
Hey, chat, can I tell you guys a secret?
I'll let you know right now, JC. She's doing it right now in
Mhm.
Cyberpunk.
I would
Yeah,
expect
yeah.
nothing less from
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, I am.
Nothing
And
less
the
from my
two
friend.
people that she's romancing are roommates.
Yeah,
They're
they were roommates.
She's confused them because they have like a similar naming convention. And then when we called her on it, she tried to lie and say she's doing it on purpose.
Mm.
And she's gonna say,
I
"I'm
am
not lying."
doing it on purpose. I wanted to be a band groupie, but that's a different campaign.
It's a different
We are
stuff.
talking. We're not talking about.
That's our
Cyberpunk
personal
now.
time. And tying into what was asked earlier, like, are we gonna do more D&D? We're constantly in the back rooms just doing our own thing. Like D&D, at least as far as the public was gonna see, that was gonna slow down for a bit. We didn't know that Jazz was gonna do something, want to stream it, but we did have measures in place. Like everyone's like, oh, I can run something, I can run something, I can run something. Because the biggest flaw that happens in groups like this is that once you reach a slowing point and the iron cools down, it very rarely heats back up. And we
Well-
didn't want to lose that momentum.
It was a thing of you guys talking about not wanting to lose the momentum, and also, to your guys' credit, being like, it can't be JC that keeps the momentum going.
Yeah, you had, I want to say this was at least a year ago, if not more. We had kind of started to realize that, oh, we're kind of at the end of the game.
You guys could see
Like-
the end coming.
Yeah,
I
we
just
know
saw
it's
the end coming a little
and
bit sooner.
And you had told us, we don't, or that you were going to, you may or may not run another game. But regardless of if you did, you were going to need a break.
Yeah.
And so we did need to, we all kind of were like, okay, well, we can't not play on Thursdays, because if we don't, then we'll never play
Mhm.
again,
Well,
which sounds kind of final, but you get what I'm saying.
and it's a thing of just it's not that I couldn't attempt to do a game immediately, It's not that I couldn't attempt to. It's that I want to give myself a little bit of leeway. I did a
Yeah.
game that I created the general concept off of a bet. And a week later came up with the major overarching story and had a wall that in my dorm room that James always told me he wished he could see before I tore it down, of papers and notes and different things looking like a conspiracy theorist board. But I don't I don't need to do that again. I have I not just it's not your guys' permission, but more like a blessing, like your guys' blessing to pause for a second. And I don't want to play just because I feel like you guys are expecting it of me. I want to put something out there good, and I didn't want to tell Jazz because I was afraid it would make her worried that her stuff would
What?
go too slowly, And it's not. It's just it's how I think. Of all of a sudden, I was like, I had a thing where I had a longer than normal drive this week, and I thought up like an entire like set of characters that will be in the campaign.
Fuck yeah.
And I've got like descriptors for them of like how I describe them, how I describe where they live, how I describe how they act and talk and what they do, and that stuff just comes to me. And the best parts of Papihos were like that, where they just came to me. Anything that was forced, I don't know how much of a difference you guys could tell. I hope I did a good job of mixing it in with enough things that came to me that everything seemed natural and intended. But like, there were parts of Papihos that I didn't have in the happiest of states. And so I want to be able to have it planned out, the beginning of my next campaign, like how I had the end of Papihos planned out, where I had a roadmap for like a year. And, you know, it's I want to do that because I feel like you guys deserve that. So, yeah, that's how it is. That's just how I roll as a DM.
Tying into that really quickly, like you've confirmed it in your own way and things like that. But as we go through it, just baseline thoughts right now. How does it feel knowing that you're going to have to live up to your own crafted legacy? You have to live up to your own expectations.
Expectations that you've set.
At the beginning of like it, we talked about like the Mercer effect, and you're like, oh, I don't have the Mercer effect. Now you have your own legacy to build upon.
So
how is that, you think, going to uniquely impact what you create moving forward? So
that's the thing. You guys have this expectation of me. I have trouble complimenting my own work in that regard, so I'm not worried about it. I don't see Papihos as something that I've made. I've seen it as something I've been able to cultivate with you guys. And so, in a way, I'm not making Usape. I'm just tilling a new garden for you guys to come and plant. We're gonna see what we make. I want to spend a little bit extra time on the foundation.
Speaking of, things that you've made, it is like when it's like, what questions that, we're going to have, and you come into it very directly, we made it together. Obviously, as you make this story, you set like markers, we follow it, and depending on what trail we take, you kind of build around that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just the way that you have to do it. There are markers that we may have missed or chose not to look at.
100%.
Out of content that you made, how much of it was just not interacted with? It just didn't get touched. Because the whole of Shadows never got touched. There was another dungeon up north, never got touched. At the end of the game, we talked about the dungeon that had like in the swamplands,
Tendon
that
dungeon.
never got touched. We never touched the swamplands. We never went that way.
So
about how much material do you think that you made that never got touched?
Yeah, we missed Eleonora before.
Eleonora,
We went to go deal with Savinia.
I would say rough estimate, and this is gonna make you guys feel like shit, I probably think, maybe like 25-30%.
Oh, that's actually not so bad.
I was gonna say like 40.
That's not bad. That's okay.
Out of all that we missed, what do you think is your most lamentable? Like, God, I really wish they could have seen that.
I think Eleonora would have been a nicely terrifying concept, and it really kind of would have set the stage for what you guys could expect from Eleonora. Like, obviously, Eleonora I'm planning on setting in the future.
Or Usape?
Or, yes, Usape from Eleonora. It was an embassy, whatever. And, like, it's going to be set in the future a fair bit, enough that, like, not.
Oh,
like,
Rem's gonna be alive.
Like, yeah, but like half of the party may or may not be alive. I'm deciding on whether it gets to the point where like Nime has passed on or anything like that. I don't know exactly how far I want to go because it's like, do I want to go to 60? Do I want to go to like 100, 200, stuff like that? But like, I think 60 is like the minimum.
You bumped it up since last we talked.
I did.
It was 50, I believe, last week.
Last time it was 50.
I think
Last time I heard 40.
But now it's a 60 minimum
60 minimum
is going to create a thing of like, only Rem and Zex are going to be alive. And Zex is specifically like mucking around that area. So he might appear
and
depending on how things go.
And
But
I've 100%
like-
already discussed with like Jazz and James that like their characters could show up. And I was like, you have to be okay with this because if they do show up, you're not going to be in control of them. And that was something that James and Jazz had to explicitly say, oh, yeah, I understand that. So.
I am sad about it, but
But you understand?
I understand.
I mean, I'd want to see what he
I
does
just-
with us.
I really hope that you play Nime well. That's my.
I hope so
whole-
too. Honestly, playing someone else. So, Helmini asked me what was the like, how hard is it to stand up to myself? Honestly, I think the hardest thing to stand up to is your guys' characters. Anytime I had to Jaeger someone, or anytime like I think about for this in this reference of like thinking of if Zex or Nime is available for the Usapate campaign. That puts me a little on edge. Because I don't want to let you guys down because these are characters that you love and care about. And I want to do them justice because they're good characters.
I think you'll do fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't do your guys' voices very well.
Yeah, good
What
luck.
voice?
In my impression of James.
Second what James said.
A voice.
What for?
I could always try, but we'll see what it is. The scope of Usapate. It sounds weird and markety and cliched, but I want to make it at the same time bigger, but also more condensed. I want bigger in the sense of options that you guys have, of how you want to do something. A lot of the time in Papihos, you were like, okay, these people, we have to fight. We have to fight these ones. It's just a choice of like, who do we fight first? Where do we fight them? That kind of thing. But combat was the end game with Tiber, the Seven Ascended. The only people that you could have been like kind of back and forth with was Gil's group, but you guys didn't see that as an option.
We hated them. From
Absolutely,
the
and you had every
the moment
right
that
to.
like, they took Barris, Rem was like, okay, they die. And then out of character, Project Napalm was cooked up, but in character, it had to have been discussed in some description. And that is a conversation I would have loved that we had actually had instead of having it in the background. It's like, okay, I'm queuing up Firestorm, you do the same, and let's just carpet bomb them.
No,
And they're like, Rem, what the hell? It's like, no,
Yeah.
carpet bomb them.
no, like you don't mess with the NPC that literally got second place for when I was like probing you guys with who should be the NPC in the poster, which I'm just gonna put the poster where Gil is, just hanging out there.
Yes, he was on poster
Yeah.
duty.
Gil's on poster duty. I'm just gonna place that there, so because it's great. But Lackham won out, but it was more because it felt right to have a villain in the poster. And God, I'm in love with Lackham. She's such a compelling villain, and you really do, as a DM, have to enjoy the opposition. You can revel in how cool they are. You can revel in how evil they are. They can be so many different aspects, but you have to love them. And the only other person in that poster that had a chance of being in there was Barris. I think there was a little talk about one other character, but it was between Barris and Lackham, and so you don't mess with Barris and get away lightly.
They didn't. They died.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the thing. But like with the Usurpate campaign, smaller scale, as in like I want a lot more things to be personal and things like that. If I could say that I had failed as a DM in any aspect, it was there were a couple characters who were like, I regret being either one way or the other, either blank check or writing in too much of their backstory and not working with me enough, and I felt like that falls on my shoulders. The game's my responsibility, and I need to talk with you guys to make sure that you guys are getting your stuff, but there are two characters that kind of stood out a little bit with being started where they ended kind of stuff. And not in like a hero's journey kind of like a hero's journey kind of way, which is okay. But like, as much as I know you guys liked your characters, I know two of you specifically, Helminia and James, wanted to expand, wished you had expanded a little bit more. And yeah, that should have been something that we should have worked on, especially earlier on. But with how the game was running and how we were doing it, it's no surprise to me that the later a character was introduced into the campaign, the more backstory notes they had, and the more they worked with me to make them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and yeah, when thinking about that, you have to realize that Rem and Zex were characters that we just kind of threw together for the one shot,
mm-hmm.
and then decided to keep.
Then accidentally, now you have the most playtime with them by far.
Rem and Zex got cooked up. James didn't even know how to play at the beginning.
Nope.
I taught James ground up. James's dog grabbed it. Suzanne knows what I'm talking about here, and ran with it. And now he plays more games than I do, and he knows the system more than I do because, you know, it's something that he's super passionate about. Fucking, I named Zex.
Yep.
Chat doesn't know that. I named Zex. I, as Helminia, named them, and we just ran with it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
now it's like our characters have become completely different beasts, separate from ourselves, which I think is a great thing. It's always kind of like the goal you want when you role play is like, okay, like, yeah, it emulates me to an extent, but when you play a character that isn't you, that's when you're like, yep, I've made it.
A piece of you exists in that character, but you would not make the same decisions that your character makes 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
one thing we...
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, and that's something that I think all of you were able to accomplish quite well.
One thing that especially 5th edition doesn't talk about that a lot of other systems like do think about a lot, and some spells describe it, is alignment. And now we were never told to pick alignments, but I think just by virtue of our actions we fell into an alignment. So I will ask everyone in the group, what alignment do you think that you have?
Shit, dude, I have no idea.
I don't know. I have never.
I don't even think about alignment.
You guys,
I'll be honest, I haven't looked at an alignment chart since we started Papihos because I don't build characters that way. I kind of get like the vibe, and I start building out the backstory and the personality, and the character kind of comes out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really ever think about alignment in terms of like the chart.
I think alignment always comes later. I think you make
Yes.
someone, you see how you feel about them, and then you're like, oh, if I had to put a pin on it, this is how I would do it. But like, picking alignment never comes first, because like
Mm-mm.
it's not all. Even though it's like grayish, not all things add up. But I think I could, if I had to, pin an alignment to everyone, and I think JC probably could on the fly right now too. JC, do you want to go through what you think their alignments are, and I will with you as well, really quickly.
Sure, let's start with Rem.
Rem,
Lawful neutral.
not for lack of trying, ended up in lawful neutral. That's just how
Yeah.
it happened. Zex, chaotic neutral.
Yep.
It's not going to work any other way. Nime's a tricky one. I'll come back to Nime, but I think Suna came into chaotic good.
Suna is chaotic good through and through. Gil is one I think will surprise you. Gil, I would actually put as
Gil's either lawful evil or true neutral.
Gil is true neutral.
Yeah.
There's always a thought in my mind of him saying applying the same one as Rem, of lawful neutral, because he does have a code that he sticks to, very much so. It doesn't necessarily, but it skews more on a bastardized side. I would put him at true neutral.
Gil didn't start as true neutral though.
No, he did not.
No,
He
Gil
started.
started
Gil
as
was
a
actually
evil
the one
character.
character that
Yeah.
did have an alignment when Alpha gave me the sheet. Gil started off as lawful evil.
That sounds
We
right.
felt it. We felt it.
Yeah.
Gil
So
started
much
off.
so that
he's
we
like,
killed him.
he's like, I am playing an evil character, and I went, sure, you think you are, and then everything happened. But no. To go back to Nime is a, she is definitely a chaotic. She switches between, but I think I'd end on chaotic good.
Ew, chaotic good homies.
Chaotic good.
Ooh, Suna and Nime are very different kinds of chaotic good because
Oh yeah.
like it's a thing that
It's
probably
still a
wasn't prevalent enough,
spectrum.
but
Look,
like the
Nime
moment
was
shit blew over, Nime
bloodthirsty.
dipped. Nime
Mhm.
dipped. The moment things blew over. 2 weeks later, she's like, okay, have fun. I'm a mom now, and left.
I'm a
Yeah.
mom.
gone.
Gotta go.
And she's like, I'm not coming back. And I think it's a bit of unspoken thing of like Nime was just contracted, grafted in, like kept around. And like the moment she didn't have anything to do, she's like I did my part and didn't have like the same beast of burden that we did, which was just
Yeah,
kind of
well,
interesting.
Yeah.
Because like, she
Nime was
just hired on.
normal.
Yeah. Nime
If-
was hired on, got pulled into the shit, and was like, well, fuck, I can't leave until this shit's done. And then once it was finished, she was like, well, that was that. I guess I get to go back to my normal life now. But with that being said, because her brain works in the contracted way, she's not going to turn down if someone was to approach her and be like, hey, I need this done.
I would, had I lived, had Suna lived, she would have asked Nime to stay in Papihos.
Interesting. Why?
Because she considers Nime her friend.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I didn't get to this part because it just wasn't, because you weren't alive. But like how Nime gave everybody a gift, her gift to Suna was an altar built around her, like out back of her house.
Oh,
So, like-
outhouse altar,
Outhouse
pause.
altar. Whoop, 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 whoop. No, it was like a guarded altar. Like you walked up
Nice.
to it, it was a statue of Suna. Like there was flowers all over the place.
That's
Like,
very
she-
sweet.
She tended
That's-
to it all the time. I didn't get to it because, like, obviously you're dead, so you don't get, like, a gift. But that was, like, the gift that I had come in mind for Nime for Suna.
I
Hmm.
mean, not to like. Suna would have liked that more than what Zex did for Suna.
Making the statue,
Damn.
the
Damn.
gargoyle statue.
Suna did not appreciate the statue.
I did normal things like sit around and be an advisor.
Yeah.
You guys all got to do your own sort of things, and I think it worked out for you quite well. At the very least, these were things that you guys chose to do.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm pretty sure the only person that didn't like Nime's gift was, Rem.
I'm trying to. You just sent me diamonds.
I
and I'm
sent
like,
you a shit ton of fucking diamonds that we found on our adventure.
It was great. You know, I appreciate it.
You're
but,
like, this is simultaneously the best and the most impersonal gift ever.
I mean, was I wrong?
No, absolutely not. But it's funny.
It's like
It
I
is
know you.
fun.
I know you like to cast spells with diamonds. Here's diamonds.
Here's
There's
diamonds.
diamonds.
I think Rem is kind of single-handedly like we stole all the diamonds in the treasury. I used them. They never asked for them back. They weren't getting them back. Like, let's be real. Like, I think I earned those.
You guys are all good.
I mean,
So something that
also,
I
there
know
isn't a
that-
lot of people alive who could use them.
Oh yeah.
yeah, no.
Rem literally was the last cleric,
The
which is something
last
that
cleric
we joked about a lot. But like,
became true.
was that by your design? Like, did you
Ah.
just not want clerics to like? There are other clerics, but like,
I wanted so the big thing, and there is a question from chat that we're gonna answer after this. The big thing that I wanted to do was everyone always complains online that death in D&D doesn't matter, and I wanted to stress that is a thing. That I can make death, even if there is a cleric who can bring people back, matter, because we introduce you can bring back in quality, but you can't bring back in quantity.
People actually say that.
Yeah, people
Oh,
say
yeah.
death is meaningless in D&D.
That's crazy. It is so
So,
meaningful.
A question of stuff of like kind of the biggest black mark against Rem's character is like, how do you feel that Rem invalidates your story? And it's like, Rem doesn't invalidate the story. Rem adds a bit of a texture to it. Rem is like, until Suna quite literally became divine, he was the divine link in the story. Vandria, the Mistress of Grief, gave Rem different visions and helped, and like was a presence. Like, she became more of a presence near the end of the game, but like she was always there. Which is, you know, it is a good little touch. But no, death is an accent to the game. You use it for specifically of Power Word Kill is a storytelling device. Yes, it can just make the battle a lot harder because one of the characters that was not about to go down did just drop dead. But Helminia definitely felt the weight of, okay, I have to structure around keeping everyone alive. And that you were always thinking of diamonds, always. And how many were there and how many were left, and then realizing when the Festival of Fire happened, the revelation that souls only had a minute to come back killed you. I heard it in your guys' voice when you realized you can't save Tyron. You can't save Kylene. You can't, and all of this stuff. And you still weren't able to save Kylene. Like, she died during when souls were being taken, and as such, I still gave you a role when you decided to try and bring her back, but her soul was in bad form. Death matters, and it only stops mattering if you decide that it no longer has weight.
I do also think that us having been able to bring people back throughout the campaign, and having done it, and then getting to Suna dying, and we're sitting in this divine place, and it felt like, at least from me, it seemed like some of the other characters was like, oh, this can be fixed. We can fix it, right? And it's like, no. Like, this is just how things are now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't fix this one.
And yeah, it's a big thing. But yeah, I don't think that yeah, no, death matters. That's where it all comes back to.
it was very much a thing of like when you first introduced the resurrection rules, I'm like, I think that's lame. And then like we got through it, and it's like, okay, you know, if I have to go through that, just don't get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And resurrection became less of like, oh, you know, after the fact, it was in the fact. Like revivify was the spell. It's like, if that doesn't work, you might as well give up. Like you can try to fix it, but it's not going to work that way. And I think it was kind of a happy accident, because if Rem had died and it was not the festival when clerics were specifically shipped in for this, that would have been curtains.
Mm-hmm.
It was specifically because we were at the battle royale, like the in like the halls of glory
tournament arc in the halls of glory.
Tournament specifically because they were there is how that worked out.
Yep.
And I think that kind of set the tone of like, okay, like the DC was an 8. I think you rolled a 9, and we're like, okay, we're not doing that again.
You guys are like, okay, that sucked.
So we're like, so we danced around Revivify, and you know, I'm
stayed on
glad
top of it. You did.
I'm glad I was on top of it.
And I'm interested in seeing if all 5 of you are in the Use of Hate campaign, how the dynamic will change, because of course the characters will be shifted. They will be.
I have my character played up. I'm not telling chat. They don't get to know.
You know, I don't expect you guys to tell chat anything about character
Everyone
concepts.
else knows though, and it's no Rem.
I know the most, as I should.
I will tell you something else really quickly. I'll tell you after. I'll just message you, do with it on your own time. But let's ask that chat question.
We got a chat question real quick. What is something you guys either look for in a fellow player or as a DM for interesting characters? What are points that can make a character good or bad?
Go in a circle.
Sure. Let's start with you then.
Oh shit. I had to think about it first. That's why I was asking. Okay. Fuck. Okay, so for a good player or a good character, let me just reevaluate this question, because are they asking from like a player standpoint, or
so they're asking
like a character standpoint, like an NPC?
They're asking from both a player standpoint from you 4, and then from me as a DM perspective.
Okay.
What are something that you 4 look at for a player as a player? What do you look at Jazz? What do you look at Suzanne and be like, that's good or that's bad?
Conflict. If your character has no conflict, your character's not good. Just throwing it out there. You need to have some sort of internal or external conflict. I think that conflict makes a great character. It makes for great story building. Because all around, you cannot be interesting as... That sounds mean. I feel like the most uninteresting characters are the ones that have nothing going on. Like, if you also have everything going on all at once. So, either too sporadic is bad, or not enough sporadic is bad. I don't know if that makes any sense.
So, as a caveat to that, and I can add on to that to try and help you clarify, either they have... So, the plot. We can go to that. If a character isn't invested in the plot, why are they there? Why are they in the adventure if they don't care? If you guys... And this is something that we can actually touch on, because at the beginning of the Ascended arc, not a lot of you cared about the Ascended.
It took the party as a whole forever to get invested.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know Zex was interested immediately. The rest of us were just kind of like, eh.
Zex was immediately interested.
That's probably not even a thing.
And Rem wanted nothing to do with it. They're like, I don't care. Like, I don't want anything to do with that.
Mm-hmm. And so how you remedy that, because you are allowed as a character to not be, or as a player, to not be as invested in some concepts or others. It's just human. But if you're not invested in the plot, be invested in your fellow characters.
Yeah.
Because
I think,
the people who you're playing with are also plot.
And then another thing that I think is really good is when you take actual time to have those moments player to player, because if you don't invest in, like how JC was saying, other players are also part of the adventure. If you don't invest in the other players of the campaign, it just like, it doesn't make for good party meshing.
Suzanne, would you like to give a response?
I suppose. I do. I like what Jazz said in terms of having like your character having some sort of internal or external conflict, but you can't. You also can't be like. I'm going to use Gil at the beginning of the campaign as an example. Gil kind of just hated everyone and like didn't care, didn't want to engage. And like we got there eventually, but having that like pushing the rest of the party away can kind of hurt the party as a whole. So at least like even if you're playing in like an evil campaign, being able to mesh well with other characters is really important.
What about you, Helminia?
A thing I like in a player is, it's a thing that happened a lot during our downtime when we would say like, I give the floor. And I think that's an important mentality to have when you play with other people, is I give the floor, I step back. And sometimes that can be like a bad thing, because when everybody steps back and the floor is empty, there's no game. But I think that is one thing that I think is a good point of just recognizing like, hey, like, it's not the me show. Sometimes it's the me show, but this is a game to be shared, not to be owned. In a DM, JC does a lot of great things as a DM, so I can only really say bad things that JC doesn't do. But I think a DM that says no and just blankets with no is a bad one. It's like, well, you said no, why? And they're like, because. And I'm like, it's like, you like, I'm a bit of a rule stickler. But I came out of this, time went on. It's like, no, why no? Why can't I do that? And if they're just like, no, because I said so, instead of saying, well, oh, it doesn't work that way, or this or that, it becomes, a bad thing. Another bad thing about a DM is when it, like, JC said earlier that you have to enjoy being the villain because that's what you do. It's when a DM, it becomes less of like a shared thing and becomes like a me versus them mentality, that things get real tricky. And I think that makes it bad. Yeah, great things. JC did a lot of great things. He listened. I had my grievances with some of the things he did, but they were minor. We spoke about them. They were dumb things, not dumb things, but like they were small things that aren't worth mentioning, such as like, oh, like I feel like we got bottlenecked a little with leveling, but like that's a thing that Jason's like, I'll work on that later. But good players know when it's not their time, and bad DMs don't know when it's not their time. It's all about timing. Timing and mentality.
Timing, mentality, and communication.
Oh yeah, communication's super important. We did a lot of talking in the back, and I think that's kind of what it greased the wheels a lot for sure. Because we're like Gil was an issue, and we're like, oh, how do we fix this? And then we did fix it in a very drastic way, but all of that shit was planned out way beforehand. Like that was planned out 3 weeks before it even happened, maybe even more. Like that was in the works. But that's my answer. I relinquish the floor.
Well, and I'm gonna transfer it just so we can keep the pattern of players talking first. So James, let's give the floor to you.
So, I don't necessarily agree with the idea that a character has to have conflict in order to be a good character. I think that as long as a character interacts in interesting ways with the world and the other players, that is what makes for a good player. A player that doesn't interact with anything is, at that point, why you even like playing the game. But I think that any character that sort of takes the other players into consideration and what's going on in the world into consideration can be a good character. And obviously there are going to be like levels of how much you interact with the world, but that also just kind of depends on backstory and stuff, and there are just a lot of things that go into making a good character. I also think that characters can be interacting with the world and not necessarily be what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessarily be sort of I don't know what I'm trying to say there. Sorry.
Like a motivation, a drive.
Yeah, motivation, a drive.
It's like, I think I see what you're saying there, like not having conflict, but your character kind of needs to have like a motivation.
Yes, motivation can be
A
okay,
thing
but
to do.
I don't see a problem with having a character who like heard about this thing and just kind of wanted to go and try it out, right?
Yeah,
And,
but even that's a motivation.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's saying it's like the character. I think the nail that we're trying to hit on the head here is the character is interested in what's happening through different means. If it's not the main plot, it is someone who is affected by it. That is kind of the big thing. A character has to care about what's happening. They can care at different levels, but that is a drive to be there has to happen, because if you're not there, the character would be somewhere else. I guess that comes over to me real quick then, because the DM is a bit of a different perspective. What do I look for in players? Is this because people going to use this as notes to try and like audition to get into the next campaign? Probably.
Oh my god, are you having campaign auditions?
People are asking for it.
I gotta audition, man.
We have to audition?
No.
I said it earlier. You guys get priority. I said it earlier.
Yay!
There are people asking for campaign auditions.
Priority isn't a guarantee, man. They're gonna kill me. They're gonna beat me to death with hammers.
And you guys seem to miss very, very easily that there is literally, I said a full cast. That means minimum 5 other people trying to get into this next campaign.
So wait, what is like the maximum for players?
So
5.
I don't right now. Obviously, what I have set up for the screen is 5, but like I don't know how many people I can I can hold at once, especially on a live stream like this. James knows because he's participated in my largest one shot. I believe that was, oh god, was that 9?
Like 12 people.
12 people?
It was more than 9. It was so many people because we had all 4 sides of that, or all. I think so.
We took up an entire floor.
Yeah, like it was a lot of fucking people. Like if I think about it, I think there were 3 to 4 people on each side of that table of the 3 sides, and then of course you got one side.
I got one side to myself.
for the
feel like
DMing things, but oh my gosh, it was probably between 9 and 12. Yeah.
I feel like 7 is the max, and then you hit a too many cooks in the kitchen kind of situation.
And definitely, I wouldn't do that many people for a stream. I did it because I forgot why that one happened.
We were just all jonesing for D&D. I think you were in town, and we hadn't played D&D as a group for a long time, and then had a couple other people pop up that wanted to play, and so we just kind of did it.
I said I'd make something up, and I made up. Actually, that was the first concept test for how the Usurpate playstyle was. So I've done a little test run. There's some things I liked, some things I didn't, and nothing I will reveal. But let's actually have me answer the question. What I want. What I look for in a player. One, that they enjoy being here. These 4 will tell you every single time. The question I asked the most is, are you enjoying yourself? How's the game going? Do you like what's happening? And of course, most of the time they said no. Of like, yes, your character's going through bad things, but like, is the story interesting? Is it compelling? Do you guys like what you see? And based off of that, I did want, at the end of the day, I'm telling a story and I want you guys to enjoy the story. So I want them to enjoy the story. From their end, I like people being assertive and attentive. My biggest pet peeve, and we're guilty of it, is dead air. I feel so awful, and that's why I always, if there is dead air, I try my best to fill it. Yes, people take time to ponder and think about stuff, but there is a distinct difference between someone revealing something or something shocking happening and people taking a couple seconds to go, oh my god, and a resolute end to a statement or conversation, and then 10 or 20 seconds where just nothing happens. Dead air makes me cringe, and so I do my best myself to not have that happen. I think another thing I would say from a DM perspective is I want the characters, the players, to be invested in their characters. I'm a little scared because everyone's being real quiet right now.
I'm just letting you.
We're
I'm listening right now.
What the hell, bro?
Yeah, you want me to say something? Fine. You're right about being invested in your character, which is
No,
partially
I was just
why
like,
I
was making a joke. I was like, I can almost hear you guys scribbling notes now. I've scared you guys.
partially why I got rid of April's, because her story was kind of done.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, like, outside of the party being a whole mess, I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Absolutely. And that pulls back into the last point I was making of the players have to be invested in their characters. They have to be rooting for their characters. They don't necessarily have to be rooting for their characters. I play a character every once in a while that I specifically root against. I don't want his outlook to be correct, but I still play him as in his mindset. He still plays with those ideals, but I root against him. But you still have to be invested in your character and rooting for your character in one way or the other. A character that you're not interested in, why would anyone else be interested in them?
I mean, that's why I cycled through 3 characters.
That is true. And and that's why I made a distinct point. I sat Jazz down in person and went through for the creation of Nia, because I was like, we have to get this right. Cordelia was a guest more than anything.
Truly.
But with Flora, you played her and you're like, okay, I enjoy her personality, but how she plays is not how I like it.
Yeah,
And
because
so-
I really so the big thing with Flora was when I created Flora, I really enjoyed her character. I loved what I was doing. However, I was still so new to D&D that spell slots were not something that I could keep track of. And so I felt like I could not play her to the best of my ability, so I had to let her go, unfortunately.
Well, and now that you've got a couple more years underneath your belt, you might be a little bit more confident in spells.
Oh, trust me. I already have my character built for the next campaign that JC is going to run. So we'll see how that goes when that
Casper
happens.
confirmed.
They may or may not have a cantrip.
A
May,
cantrip.
may or may not.
And
Singular cantrip. But yeah.
Just one, and it's race. It's only given to me by race.
Mhm.
Hey,
So-
you're saying too much.
That's too much. You have a race?
You're saying too much. Silencer.
But with that question out of the way, before someone else gives out a question or before chat puts in another question, I have another a bit of a fun fact / trivia thing for you.
Okay.
Since we mentioned it, there has been quite a few people that have come through this stream, but have not remained with the cast. I am talking about guests. People
Three.
who were not supposed to be on the main cast and who came, played a character, and then left, leaving impressions on us. How
We're
many
all thinking of
guests?
one man right now.
How many guests do we? How many guests have we had?
3.
We've had more than that because everyone
Fuck.
came in and guested for the battle royale. Like all
Oh,
of the beta
shoot.
squad came in
Oh.
and played.
Are we counting the
Dang.
battle royale?
So we
I
can.
am.
So you can count the battle royale if you want to, but if you don't count the battle royale, like, how many guests have we had in the? We'll say because the battle royale, there's an easy number to add on to there.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think other than
Without the
that, I
battle
wanna say
royale,
it was three.
how many characters showed up?
3.
So it was Johnny
three.
Mangold's character, and then I want to say there was another one, but I can't remember.
So it was Johnny. Cruel played one, didn't he?
Or
Yeah, he did.
Cruel,
It was
my bad.
mayonnaise.
Yeah. So Johnny.
It was Nutmeg
Cruel,
in the
and
tournament,
There was Nutmeg. So
and
it
then there was our Minotaur friend.
Oh,
4.
so 4. Yep.
Oh, I forgot
And
about
the
that
temple.
guy.
Yep. The asshole.
He was fine.
Was he though?
I mean,
So-
maybe a little bit evil, but like,
I
I'll give him a
thought
pass.
I was gonna have to be like, oh yeah, I gave you a little reminder, and I was gonna be a little bit lenient on it because of Cordelia technically counting as a guest, but I wasn't gonna count her.
Oh.
You guys
Oh,
are
yeah.
still wrong. You're missing one.
Josh
Really?
played a blood hunter, but was that really a guess?
He was a guest.
Then if you're counting him, that's 5.
What the fuck did Josh play a blood?
There was
Josh
blood
played a
hunter in
blood hunter
Lichton.
named Riven.
I
Oh,
remember
yeah.
because I sent him a letter with the bird with the message, "Take this to the man that smells of blood." I didn't count him because at the beginning he wasn't supposed to be a guest. He became a guest
Yeah.
later on. I feel most bad about Cruel's character because we had that man bound and gagged for
Look,
about.
The man
He
decided to play
fucking
a
deserved
mute
it.
character,
He was mute and he blew up.
and he blew up.
He was and
And
we
you guys
later
were
found
right
out
about him.
He was actually just
evil.
an evil person.
Yeah.
So, and that was
I-
something that he had asked to do, and so I didn't have much sympathy when it blew up in his face.
Yeah.
Fair.
So
How about Is it time? I think we should have an alpha question.
Okay.
So Alpha's first question was the box of wood actually wood?
It was.
It was javelins.
It was a bundle of
Actually
javelins.
just wood.
It was a bundle of javelins. That was what it was. 100%, nothing else, just javelins.
Okay.
Then why'd you say it was wood, huh?
Because you guys failed.
Because
Did
we all failed
over and
that
over
check.
again?
All of us failed that check.
Yeah, we did.
It was javelins.
And then I do have one more alpha question that I think will be more interesting for you, JC.
Okay.
Did you ever envision Gil taking care of the two boys, Almir and Castian? Was that set up from the beginning, or did you come to that realization later, and at what point?
So, it was set up as a plot hook. Of Gil specifically, because remember how Alpha, I told you guys in the stream, Alpha came to me and said, hey, I'm gonna do an evil character, and I basically said, yeah, you are. And so that concept came of Rem training archers and Gil training two melee people and making them specifically younger twin boys. These brothers that... Because I know Gil's backstory, and Gil's backstory never got too... We never got too into it. But Gil had some issues with how he was trained, and I wanted to specifically give him something that connected to his backstory. And Gilgamesh was raised as a barbarian, and so now he has a chance to have raised two barbarians better. Not just in skills or anything, but of not torturing the two boys. Yes, being hard on them, but not abusing them. Not putting them through hell in order to become warriors, because care is something that I deliberately laid the chance to give by Gilgamesh across his path multiple times. Terra, even though she's her own character, every character's used in their own plot ways. If she's another way, she and Tyron were another way that Gilgamesh were able to kind of realize that there was good stuff that he could do in the world and people that he could care about. And there was a good bit of back and forth between Alpha and myself of whether Gil's capable of being in a relationship. So, no, it was intentional. He just kept it in the background. And that's his choice. That's always a choice as a character.
I got a question for you, JC.
What you got?
What NPCs did we miss that you really wish would have been there? I know Tofan came out real late, and you were happy when we got to him. Who else did we miss? There were a lot of stores we didn't go to.
There's a lot of stores you didn't go to. What was a good one? There were a lot of all of the council members had distinct personalities. All of the arbiters had distinct personalities and notes on them, but I didn't want to specifically give you guys character. I didn't want you drowning in characters.
The only one we ever got somewhat close to was Vardair, and that was by virtue of that was the one presented to us, and that was the one Rem kind of stuck around.
Absolutely.
But Vardair always came off as for me, he always came off as unwillingly competent and flighty. Was that by design, or was that just how I felt about it?
He's unwillingly competent. Flighty's a little interesting of a statement, but to each
Nervous.
their own. And the death of the artist is a thing. He is technically the records, the finance keeper for tens of thousands of people, so he could be a little flighty. like James could tell you because James is aware of like a bit of a deeper meaning for one of the arbiters, Gwen. She got a little bit of limelight outside of the stream game, and like she was, I think she had a bit of a compelling story. Gwen was the first arbiter that was not taken from a higher class. She was raised on a farm, and she suffered from imposter syndrome and such like that. But like all of these,
mind melted.
huh?
She got mind melted.
She got mind melted.
Talcott did something and she screamed and then died.
She feeble-minded. She got her mind gooped.
Oh, I remember
You know
that.
when that happens.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember when Zex got hit by the dumb beam. That was
Oh
fun.
my gosh, that was awful.
I remember when Kalung tried to do it to me.
All right, we've got another question from chat real quick, and this is for you guys specifically, not me. Do you plan characters before the story, or do you let the story shape them? For example, do you have character progression mapped out from the beginning, or do you adapt based on the campaign's development? As an example, starting off as a level 2 wizard and considering a level in warlock despite it not being the most optimal choice because a devil convinced the character.
I can answer this first if you like.
I got it too. You go
I'll
first.
go for it. I'll go for it.
Okay, so personally, I let the story sort of develop my character. I did it this campaign. The whole thing with Zex becoming a sorcerer happened because of the stuff with Azra's duel, whatever it is, the dragon. And so that would not have happened had it not been a major plot point in the campaign.
I make the character first. I'm like, okay, I want to be this. This is probably the subclass I'm gonna go down. And unlike pretty much everyone else, I don't multi-class. It is one thing that has been addressed multiple times throughout the campaign is I like to run all my characters raw. I don't multi-class.
I've been trying to convince him to take fighter forever, so
I don't like that was the meme at the time because everyone else was doing it, but I don't multi-class, and not because I don't think it's like not optimal. It's just that or most optimal. I just don't like multi-classing. It just never appeals to me. I very rarely find myself in a thing of saying like, oh, I want to do other things. I like to do one thing. I like to do it very well. And it just so happened that this time it was cleric because based upon my previous things, cleric was the thing I was most comfortable with. But I think moving forward, as you see more of just what I play, you're not going to see any multi-classing just because you see it in other games I play. Like I play some other games with some other people. I don't like spreading things around too much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a multi-class Andy. I don't enjoy it. But I make them first. Like I get a name, I pick a class, I know what subclass I want to go into. But as far as everything else, like how I act, how I interpret the world, things like that, let the story start to take place first, and then I start to make things about that. It was a happy coincidence, or by JC's design, that Rem fit into the world as well as he did based upon everything that was happening. But that's not for me to think about. But I make a character first.
It's for me to know. No, and it's worth noting, just real quick, sorry to cut you off, Suzanne.
no, go for it.
Worth noting, just to make sure everyone knows, 3 out of 5 characters were multi-class. We've got, obviously, Zex. Suna was built as a multi-class. And then Gilgamesh. Nime and Rem remained pure.
And you know, Nime wasn't always Nime, so I've been pure from the very beginning,
Absolutely.
and I knew I wanted to be that way from the very beginning.
Well, and it was something I told you guys. Everyone's just like, because people, you know, as players, I should say should, they ask and talk to me, and so I had Alpha, I had Suzanne, I had James be like, "Hey, are you good with me multiclassing?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. Build the character you want to." I do plan on going to 20. And just to let you know, it is a special feeling to know that you've done all 20 levels in one character. But hey, maybe that's just me.
It was very nice.
It feels
When the
like an
divine intervention
accomplishment.
just happens. Oh,
I feel like
that
it's an
was
accomplishment.
chef's kiss.
And
Yeah.
I suppose that's a difference for me too. Is Bard's level 20 thing garbage? I get like an extra inspiration die if I don't have any at the beginning of combat if I went full Bard.
I mean, not
I
all are as good as the cleric
know-
level 20, that's for sure. But
Mhm.
I don't know what sorcerer gets at level 20 because
They recover
I didn't
sorcery
look-
points on a short rest. Like, not
Oh,
all of them, but like some of them.
like when mostly because when I made Suna, as JC touched on, I did kind of already have some knowledge of the world, but was built as a sorcerer fighter multi-class. And I think, honestly, having looked back now, I think the way that I used to play Suna in terms of combat was not the most optimal. In like trying to like do the sorcerer thing and then doing like the traditional fighter thing by fighting with weapons. Whereas as we saw much later in the campaign, it kind of there was no point to it. It was better to use the fighter abilities like Action Surge to cast another spell. Or I want to say I like Vortex Warped into like Action Surge Grapple or something like that. Or like bonus action Vortex Warp, Action Grapple, and then Action Surge, like a Lightning Bolt or a Disintegrate or something, which became kind of a little bit more optimal, but in being shaped by kind of just messing around with how things work. But certainly in terms of like character development, that kind of just came with playing in the world and playing the character and being around the other characters. I will probably be the first one to say that I will play a suboptimal build. I
Well,
might have to find one next time.
it's optimal because you're enjoying it.
True.
What do you think, Jazz? You want to walk us through the process of your thought process for character building?
Sure. So I guess like my true process for character building is really I don't have a process at all. I will be completely transparent in saying I had no idea what I was doing with Nime at any given point in time of the campaign. At all. The fact that she did as well as she did, pure luck. I knew that she was gonna be a fighter, I knew that she was gonna be a samurai, that is it. I had her backstory, and basically, like, that was all. I do not map out my characters because I know that as the world progresses, I'm going to change my mind. I, like Helminia, did not multi-class. I am a level 20 fighter through and through, but not with the same reasoning. I just didn't multi-class because I felt like, as I have been playing in this campaign, it was too much for me, personally. So now that I have more experience, I could maybe dabble. But I think that, yeah, I think really I didn't plan out my character at all, other than who she was before everything. And then beyond that, I think that, yeah, I don't know if I could ever just go with the flow when it comes to, I mean, not go with the flow. I don't think I could ever just like map out a character and do that. Just because that's not how my brain works, and I change my mind a lot, so that would not work for me personally.
And
I
I know a
wanna
lot
know-
of players that, sorry, did it again.
You're fine.
I know a lot of players, just in general, it's just as a statement, and I see people on both sides. And if you do have a plan to it, a planned out character level up concept, that's awesome. That's great. If a level up sneaks up on you, you're gonna feel like $1 million. But don't feel trapped by it. Be willing to change. You can still plan stuff out. That's the only kind of thought I have.
I think, yeah, I want to touch on this, that too. That I think originally when I had brought Suna into the game, that I was just gonna go half and half. But then as we got to talking about it, it kind of became like I guess I understood that it like, oh, I could go half and half and that would be fine, or we could sacrifice some fighter levels to get a little bit more out of Sorcerer, and that might actually be the better way to do it. And I don't know, I'm happy with kind of having done that, but I didn't plan that necessarily from the beginning.
Gotcha. Well, with some plans set out for characters, and of course I always had my schemes as a DM. I've got one more little fun fact trivia thing that I've got on this sheet. We've been playing for quite a long time, and sometimes those episodes went quite long, especially in the beginning. However, we have never had a distinct end time. There were always general broad strokes that we tried to end it by, but I cut stuff off when I felt like it was necessary. That being said, there are very distinct there is a very distinct longest session and a very distinct shortest session.
Are we counting the Battle Royale?
Yeah, we can count the Battle Royale.
The Battle Royale was the longest.
No.
It is not.
Really?
I believe
It was the Orc War.
second episode was the longest one, if I'm not mistaken. It came out to like 6.5 hours, something like that. It was something ridiculous. And the shortest one was like an hour and a half.
The shortest one, I believe, was when it was very recent. As it was when Rem got beamed back into existence. I think that was the shortest, and I think the longest was the Orc War.
I think so too, because I remember, well, it might not have been though, because that was one where we were like, that was one of the few times where we got Saturday session because no one could wait for it.
You guys were like, God damn it.
We did go long in the early days.
What's the answer, Jace?
The answer is all of those are wrong. Not a single one was correct. The longest session, beating out the Battle Royale by 1 or was it 2 minutes, was the episode Rem died.
Yo!
6
Yeah, okay.
hours, 12 minutes, and 50 seconds.
Your boy's a
Oh my
milestone.
God.
No one complained about that one. The Battle Royale comes second, so you're not wrong. The D&D Battle Royale lasted 6 hours, 11 minutes, and 37 seconds. It was a long one. The Orc Battle was a longer session, don't get me wrong. It did not crest the 6 hour mark. It was very close. It was 5 hours, 54 minutes. But it's not even third place.
And the shortest?
The shortest
The hour and a half one?
the shortest one was our second to last session. The Quiet After the Explosion, session 132, was 1 hour and 49 minutes.
Is that the one where Rem got beamed back into existence?
Yes, it is.
Then I was right.
I do have to check one thing because I can't remember if this was the session where I had lost internet connection and so it split. But there is a episode on the channel that is 1 hour and 21 minutes long, and it is labeled Festival of Fire Part 2.
Festival of Fire Part 1 is also 1 hour and 31 minutes, so that one beats out.
But I don't know if those episodes are
when the
meant to
internet
be
cut out.
combined. I don't.
Or,
So
okay.
if the internet cut out during
that's
that,
supposed to be longer.
because
'Cause I
if
think-
it is
yeah.
one session, if episode 98 is one session, then that's 3 hours. So
Right.
Because I think we did
we lost her.
and then
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, we're fine.
We're good.
I thought the stream had cut out for a second. I was about to say, what the hell?
It was just them.
oh, my shit's being weird over here sometimes. Because like we did the festival, and then the doctor showed up, and we left, and we came back, and everything was bad.
Uh-huh.
And then I think we spent the rest of that session, like, trying to get everyone out.
So
Or, like,
it's the
get
big thing is
out.
like the
Do what we
festival of fire. I don't exactly remember because there is a day to remember, which I think is the beginning of the festival, or it's the absolute last session of downtime. Then there's the Festival of Fire, which is you guys actually being in the festival and having fun. And then there is episode 99, which is a Festival on Fire, which is when Lackham pounced.
That was
But yeah,
the worst.
knowing that episode 100 is titled "The Fall of Greywall" is quite cheeky. That is my last fun fact that I was able to conjure up. But
We do have another chat question.
we do have another chat question. And this one is also keeping in the cheeky theme. Would your character, wishing for me to pick an NPC, would they choose to fight 100 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck? I will keep in mind, by the way, that these guys are level 20 adventurers, and it probably
yeah.
doesn't matter.
I was gonna say, like, are we going level 20, or you told me I have like legendary resistances and a legendary action, so both. I'll take on both.
I'll take on everything.
How much XP does each one give?
I believe.
Whichever one
I
gives
believe.
more XP.
I believe miniature horses would give like 50 XP, and a horse-sized duck. I believe a large duck's a thing, and it only gives like 200 or something.
Okay, 100 duck-sized
So-
horses.
Thinking about it, Nime could grapple
Oh
a
my god.
horse-sized duck.
Here she goes again.
And then make it a mount.
Make it a
Make it a
mount,
mount.
and then ride into battle
And then
against 100 duck-sized horses.
Yes, exactly.
I,
Oh boy.
I think Rem could body either one, but just based
Yeah.
upon Rem's biggest strength, I might have to go with the 100 duck-sized horses.
You could churn through those guys like you did the undead.
But like, I could also body one. Like, inflict wounds is a hell of a drug.
Mm-hmm.
Inflict wounds is a hell of a drug.
I
That was
think.
brutal.
Yeah, I think an NPC that I think would be funny to choose for this would be the princess. Sure, Roxy. Roxy would go against one horse-sized duck. 100%, no thought in her mind. And she would specifically just stay behind it, like do the cartoon thing of like just being behind it, and every time it turns, she tries to turn with it.
That sounds right for her.
Yeah. And she just keep picking feathers off of it. What a cheeky question.
I got a question for you.
Absolutely.
Bagman, what were the optics?
Bagman?
Bagman?
I know
Oh,
we had
God.
this discussion.
We did
Bagman.
have this discussion.
What were the optics?
I thought if it made narrative sense, to be honest, I was thinking about like, because obviously when you guys went to Forminos, there was going to be a monster. And I thought about having the Bagman on the loose, but I kept with what I wanted it to be originally and had it be a Wendigo. Bagman was fun, but there was no random chance of Bagman.
Bagman has no stat block normally, though, too.
Neither there's a Wendigo.
Really? Wendigo isn't a monster that's just existing?
I just made it.
Oh.
There's a lot of monsters that I just made.
That
Well,
is-
yeah,
that is
but like
true,
a
we know that.
Wendigo is one you would think.
So,
Would be in
Yeah.
the old monster manual.
Ye Monster Manual.
And if not Ye Old Monster Manual, in some other spoopy book like Volo's or Van Richten's.
Van
or
Richten's would definitely be the place for it.
A number of other books.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite combat encounters. I already have mine on top.
Oh.
It was when Gil beat those 3 dudes to death with his shackled hands.
Yeah.
There have been great moments all the way around, but that one, it genuinely surprised all of us just how it kept going.
How he
and
was able to
going
keep going.
and going.
Honestly, I think the Lackham fight was probably my favorite.
Which stage, first or second?
All of it.
I have a preferential stage. It's the first one.
Like, I don't know, like, going into that fight, I didn't really know what to expect, I guess, but then having to deal with her, like, weird armor, and then, like, finally being able to punch through that, and having to deal with some other bullshit, and then going into the dragon form, and, like, me and Zex being off the edge, flying around, like, doing what we can, that, like, I think you made her invulnerable to damage, and we, like, got, like, a 76 out of a Crown of Stars moat from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, all of us dying at the end, which really fucks me up, because if I had had one spell slot, I was out of spell slots. If I had had one spell slot, I could have saved, I think, everyone.
If that death ward had still been active, maybe Suna would still be here.
Hard to say.
It's a thing.
You purposely popped that death ward, didn't you?
Maybe.
No.
You did it for plot reasons.
Well,
didn't you,
also
boys?
Lackham has it out for all of you for different reasons, but Suna
I
was
was
being
talking a lot of
unnaturally shit talking that fight.
I was talking a lot of shit.
There was a lot
I
of
was
shit
also
talking.
talking a lot of shit. I kept calling her corpse. I had fun.
Mm-hmm. Zex, Nime, Jazz, James, what do you guys got? Any favorite moments?
Moments or fights?
We can go fights, and then if we have to expand out into moments, we can. We can stay small with fights right now. Small.
Small.
The,
yeah.
That's definitely small.
The Azra's duel fight was fun. It was really stressful, mostly. But like Gil just cutting open her stomach and stuff and going through on that side of it was just super fun.
Yeah, and you guys rocked that fight. It was good.
It was a good fight.
Kind of sad
Oh,
that a shrinking potion was my best idea for that, but
Yeah,
you know,
it's okay.
we vibe.
We
Jazz.
forgive you.
I don't know who's gonna work. What the hell?
Yeah, no. Man, that's a tough question because I inherently am not a combat girly. So picking my favorite combat, I Nime did a good job. I don't have a favorite combat.
Okay.
But
Does Nime have a favorite combat?
Ooh, that's not a bad way to say it.
probably the one, God, where she grappled. Man, the first grapple, when I pulled that out, man, that was my favorite part of the whole, like, of all combat we've ever done. I don't remember who that was with, because bad memory, but, yeah, I think that would be her favorite combat, is when she basically grappled onto one of the 7 and just kept stabbing him to the point where he had to power word kill her. Yeah,
Mhm. That was Gordos.
yeah.
That was a good fight. That was
That
a
was a
rough
good fight.
fight.
It was a
That
rough
was-
Oh
one.
my gosh.
Fucking sucked. But it was good.
Yeah.
And then if we wanted to elaborate into favorite moments.
Yeah, let's keep it rolling of favorite moments.
I really liked the moments where Nime would like have personal connection with the other peoples, like when camping out with Suna and talking about everything that's going on with the party, or when she would cook breakfast for the entirety of the party. When we were talking about building the house and I had all these big plans for a secret tinker lair and never got it because we didn't stay there very long. But yeah, I think that's about it.
I've got a couple favorite moments. I think we were talking about, Zex was talking about the dragon fight after that, when I think it was me and Rem were separated from everyone else, as they were kind of dealing with kind of whatever's left. And then Lackham showed up. I really enjoyed having that conflict between Suna and Rem, so much so that Rem shot me in the back.
That was the last time that Rem attacked a party member, and it did knock you out.
Yeah, so that was one of my favorite moments. I really liked where I can't remember where in the story this happened, but when Roxy hugged Suna for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
That surprised me. I didn't see that coming. I know this fucked up JC. I really liked being able to greet and guide everyone into the afterlife.
Fucked me up, yeah. Crying in the club.
Crying into Azu's celestial kush.
What a guy.
You know my ass has answers. Look, we'll just highlight reel them. Some of my favorites. Doing Suna's coming of age ceremony on the coast.
That was
Having
good.
people waste command spells on an undead 3 times. That was pretty baller. What are some other great moments? It wasn't even mine. It was Nima's like, boil the honey. That's not how that works. What do you mean that's not how that works?
That one was a good one.
Gil beating the guy to death with his bare hands. Some other great moments. There's so many of them. Using command on Johnny and him just not knowing what it was and walking off. Getting mad that the doctor bodied me, boosting up Johnny and sending him in there, not having that become of anything. We don't even know what was the prize from that. We don't know.
You don't know.
We never found out.
Guys,
All right,
What was
because
the
it all
prize?
exploded and then we tried to kill a guy.
Whack him for
Yeah.
the first time. You guys remember that shit? Walking down
Oh,
into the pit in all the different rooms?
Yeah,
Aw.
that shit was
So-
crazy too.
Not technically the first time we met Lackham. I guess
Okay.
we
Found out later.
yeah.
I was pissed because I knew. Remember how I subconsciously was like, yeah, fuck the Master of Evocation. That bitch fucking sucks.
Every time you said that, I'm not sure if you ever said it on stream, but every time I did smile.
Yeah, I said it like every time we came across the Master
See,
of Evocation. I was pissed.
I always-
hated her.
I always talk about like the disadvantages of you guys not being webcammed in with me. But there is one distinct advantage of I can like look at the camera like I'm in an Office episode and like make it very clear to the audience that they are doing something stupid.
I've got one more favorite moment to share
Okay.
before we move on to the next question. It was the moment that Tiber was running away, and I said, "Everyone, I need you to agree to what I'm about to do before I do it." And then I let him get away, and Alpha went nuts. Because I don't know how much HP he had left. It probably wasn't a lot.
No.
And it was sunlight. He would have died, but I chose to come back. And that set up the encounter for a whole other ball game. That was a very interesting moment. We're just like, no one was on the same page.
No. Everyone was angry. I might be a little bit biased. But the final bit where Rem came back and it was Zex, Nime, and Gilgamesh running up the stairs. And then it became the dog pile hug on the floor. At that moment, with the four of you just laughing, cursing together in a big pile on the floor, something in my mind clicked for me and just went, I think I did good. And I love that moment.
It is a good moment.
It's a good
I
one.
enjoyed that one too. Especially since it took some fucking convincing to make that dude go back.
Yeah. We have another question coming in from chat. Where do you look for inspiration for either characters or campaigns? Are there books, movies, TV shows, etc.? Everything is inspiration. Absolutely everything. I get inspiration from walking outside. I get inspiration from a movie that I see, a game I play, a conversation I have with friends, a car ride in, other D&D podcasts, covers of books I see. Anything can be inspiration. It's molding it into your own thing. That's where things can truly come into shape. And I know that mine's a bit of a stupid one because I'm not going to give any specifics because I'm so broad, but literally anything can be inspiration for me. What about you guys?
I mean, yeah. Anything is kind of really inspiration. I know some of the party knows this in terms of Suna. But when she was built, she was like Naruto's need for friendship, Edward Elric's backstory from Fullmetal Alchemist, even though that got retconned. Not that I'm upset about that, because the retcon was so good.
knew it was a Full Office reference this whole time.
How have I never mentioned that to you?
I knew it was this, like, the whole JC was hiding it from me.
And there's probably a little bit of something else in there. But I pull from just kind of things that I enjoy, whether that's shows or a lot of times it's music, just because I'm a musician and I listen to a lot of music.
Yeah, songs are a great form of inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
I think my character for Strahd is almost entirely built off of like music.
For me, most of my inspiration comes from books because it's where I consume most of my media. But some music, some movies, occasionally a TV show will hit me just right, but for the most part, it comes out of just books that I read. And honestly, I try to avoid putting too much emphasis on anything I pull, any like one character I pull out of a book. If I'm gonna take inspiration, I'm gonna try and mash as much together as I can, because I've never seen like trying to make a one-to-one copy go well.
I would speak directly against one-to-one copies because they're not yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no room to go anywhere because you don't know where they should go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the way that you mash things together and the way that it evolves is kind of how it becomes like yours.
Yeah. Well, and I don't really have an example for this campaign because, like we stated before, Zex was just kind of a thrown together thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of picked stuff out as we went along and developed it based on what was going on in the story.
Yeah, Zex is kind of his own reference now.
Mm-hmm.
His own inspiration point. No. So
I just kind of start with an idea and run with it.
yeah.
Like, I'll get an idea in my head. It's like, oh yeah, I want to do that, and then I just run with it. Rem was an interesting thing of like, they started off a bit of a necessity, but I did said, hey, like this domain, shovel, run it, and we just ran it, and Rem became what they had to be.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I would say I pulled inspiration from, because I think we're pulling inspiration from everything we consume at all times unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to kind of pinpoint exactly where it is because we're always being inspired. But it is kind of the cop-out answer for me to say, like, I don't look for inspiration. Inspiration finds me, and then I just use it as I see fit.
No, at this point, we've all it's a world. Pathlios became a world that was informed by its characters, and characters that were formed by the world. It became, after a while, it becomes self-sustaining,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a sign of a good mix.
Yeah, and like I think you shouldn't look for inspiration; it'll come to you.
Mm-hmm. Right?
If you can pinpoint where your inspiration comes from, all the better to you, but
it's a little hard for us.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to ask right here because I know that we're beginning to get close to the 3-hour mark. I want to make sure that there are no questions that you guys are absolutely ready and raring to ask about.
I do have one.
Go for it. No, I want to make sure that you guys get your stuff out because I've been teasing you for 3.5 years saying, oh yeah, you got to wait for this. This is your time. This is your chance.
What entity made Tiber into a vampire.
So Tiber fell victim to a Shadowfell influence. There is a reigning creatures in the Shadowfell that kind of go through, and as you guys found out, like the castle was a point of interest in the Shadowfell. The creature that had gotten a hold of Tiber was either driven out or killed by Kalung, as you guys found Kalung in the Shadowfell, where the creature would be, but there was a Shadowfell being that would have been basically a tier above Tiber, that was having a parasitic relationship with Tiber, and that had turned him into a vampire lord.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Do we know how long Tiber was in power?
20 years?
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
I've got one question that probably doesn't have a concrete answer.
Go for it.
How many scrying orbs just never got noticed?
Minimum, like probably 8.
Wow.
To be fair, in the beginning, before like you guys were tipped off too much, Lackham started scrying on you guys the second that you guys had went to her dungeon, the one with the robot.
Mm-hmm.
Who was Lackham's biggest
yeah.
scrying victim? Like who was the one that was the easiest?
Oh,
Who did she
Zex
latch
to
into the
start
most?
It was X.
Yeah.
Did she ever fail?
She never failed, as far as I could remember. I do remember when Zex started going using True Sight, she began to wean off of Gilgamesh, because Gilgamesh secluded himself in the house. And so Gilgamesh, if she scryed into Gilgamesh and Gilgamesh was in his forge, she knew that you guys were in Great Wall.
Yeah.
And she didn't have to worry about popping in while Zexa had his eyes active.
Mm-hmm.
She eventually reached she was just giving a binary yes or no to a question.
Pretty much. Her scries, you guys did a good job of making her scries less effective as she went on. But she scryed all the time. She was great.
Mm-hmm.
Did the 7 of them were they convinced by the caretaker together, or were they kind of gotten to separately, 1 or 2 at a time?
Approached separately. Lackham, it was made to be her own idea, of course.
Of course.
And then, because if I remember correctly, I had it as Lackham was the first to be tempted, and then because not becoming a champion of Mystra doesn't necessarily mean you died. Doesn't necessarily, especially for divine beings like Pakat and beings that last a longer time.
Yeah.
But and so it was going through of, even if they had died, Lackham was uniquely gifted, we'll say, in being able to manipulate those who did have their lives cut short. And so the 7 Ascended, who were no longer among us in that moment, picking those like Kauta, who, come on, you know how he died. He died beating the shit out of something and stuff like that. Of people who, at one point, like the 7 ascended were heroes in their own right, who were corrupted, fallen to an influence and a promise of, some of them felt they deserved more, and others felt like the gods should not have as much control as they ought to. Others just were happy to kill. Some were a lot simpler than others. And Lackham got to be the forefront of it. Lackham became so much in the spotlight that she did... I meant for her to overshine the Caretaker. The Caretaker was an optional fight. You guys knew that. You didn't have to go all the way. You felt like you had to,
some of us
though.
didn't think that she existed at all.
Absolutely.
We didn't think she existed.
Thought she
I'm not
was
saying
alive.
that I did. I thought she was always there. Hell never thought she was real.
Nah.
Really?
I thought she was a
Mhm.
loose concept.
Yeah.
And specifically of, in the background, only like a god could. Having so much influence while being so barely present. It's all kind of background shading for, yeah, they were a god.
The only thing that stopped me from eating those hands is because I was dead. I hope you know that.
Hey, you killed yourself, man.
Well,
That's
yeah,
the
thanks for
only thing
doing
that's the only thing that stopped me.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I was dead at the time. I got one more question.
Yeah. This is the time for questions. This is our lightning round, I guess. You guys got a lot of
No,
stuff.
I'm changing the topic. You should finish the topic first.
Anyone have any more comments on that?
I have a question about Lackham, but it's not necessarily on topic, so Hell can go first.
Okay.
I'm changing. I guess I'll go. What the hell was that damn hole down there?
That was
Oh, yeah.
that was
I know it was a Darkest Dungeon reference, but what the hell was
so
that?
it was a
man?
mixture of a Darkest Dungeon reference and a one of my friends in college begging me on his hands and knees to include it as a reference. That hole, not in Papihos, not in my world, but in his D&D world that he had me playing for a couple, like 3 or 4 sessions, was the god of his world. And so he's like, dude, you know what would be super funny? Is if my god was in your world. And I
So
was
what
like,
was
that's
the
a
end
that's a
goal?
very funny joke. I'm gonna mess with it a little bit to actually make it make sense. Do you want to know what the hole was in Papihos' context?
I do.
The hole translated to a and this is gonna make James's skin crawl. A break in the abyss.
Ooh, that's no good.
Specifically the layer the layer of bloodthirst, and so these people were doing a bit of a ritual to keep. You'd be thinking, oh, they're stopping the abyss from taking over. No, they're like they're keeping the hole open to summon things from it. The abyss works in mysterious ways, and they found out that this hole was the hole was originally discovered by godly people. That's why there are statues of different gods, and they had a rotating honor guard where a new statue was built every like 500 years or something.
Is this Pockot's hole?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
In Dentor. It was eventually taken over by cultists, and it flipped from safeguarding the hole and stopping anything that came through to summoning things. And as volatile as the Abyss is, it began to want to close, go somewhere else. And they became uniquely disposed to sacrificing things to it. And it satiated the bloodlust of the whole and allowed it to stay in one place. Now, who's a better sacrificial person than someone who does not die in the extent from non-magical weapons, but can still possibly bleed? A demigod.
Get down there.
Why didn't you just leave?
How did he
Because we know
get
he
down
could
there?
have.
Like he just broke those chains as
Was
soon
he
as
just
we were
was he
done.
just chilling for funsies?
He was not
The
chilling.
masochist?
He was not chilling necessarily for funsies. There was specifically something that was triggered that allowed him to get out. He played it off extremely well, but you guys did do something that I mentioned in the episode that allowed him to get through the chains.
What was it?
There was a this kind of divine sappage that was happening through the basically kind of through the exposure of the hole in the blade that they were using. And so it was kind of a maintenance thing of through a combination of the chains that he was bound to and the blade that was being run across his skin, he couldn't actually manifest any divine power. And so he
Blade a
was
magical item?
the long kind of rake thing that wasn't actually a good weapon. It had some properties, yeah.
Oh, what were they? I want to know. I'm curious.
It was literally just to inflict bleeding. That is literally it. That is the purpose, is to spill as much blood as possible.
That would have been pretty cool. Should've
It
took
is,
it.
it is not wieldy as a weapon. There's no proficiency for it, and you'd be rolling at disadvantage. It is not worth it.
Oh, well, I could roll that normally. Sometimes.
Sometimes. But yeah, that's the whole, a very fucked up concept that never really got explored.
Okay.
That's fine. I'm fine with having not explored that.
Mm-hmm.
I am.
I've
more than
uniquely
totally okay with not dealing with it.
Uniquely traumatized James with the Abyss. James has gotten his more than his fair share of the Abyss treatment, and he is... he doesn't like it.
The Abyss is a scary place.
So that's something else that, like, you guys talked about earlier, like how much of the game didn't get explored. Like, you guys didn't go to other planes that much. I'm planning on rectifying it a little bit with the next campaign, possibly. But like I'm gonna be it's still gonna be material plane focused, but there might be some stuff with one or two other planes that we'll do as well.
I do wish we had spent more time in the Feywild, but
Oh
you know,
yeah, you guys could have
we had shit going on.
you guys could have seen where Zavidnia was kept and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
met more people who would have died when Zavidnia got out.
Anyway, my Lackham question.
Uh-huh.
How did she get that way?
The stitches and such.
Dracolich?
Yeah. Like what? How she wasn't born like that. So
No.
Like,
So Lackham is unique. So all the seven Ascended have their Ascended form and then their Bestial form. And it is specifically a swap because everyone thinks their mean monster form is their Ascended form, and it's not. Their base form is the form that they revert to. They are technically most powerful when they are humanoids. Lackham was a blue dragon. She is as old, if not older, than Abrazdul. I think older than Abrazdul, if I remember correctly. She was selected and lived during the Time of Gods as a protector, as a warrior, and as a sage, someone that knows a lot of knowledge, and she became obsessed with the secrets of the divine and the secrets of the arcane powers, especially because she's a champion of Mistress. She has divine right to know. The issue was she was not a good teacher. And as such, Mystra took away her limited form of immortality, and she became distressed about it. That is where this all kind of came from. Approached by the caretaker, and as such, the caretaker kind of prodded of being like, oh, you won't live long enough to be able to do anything about this. Your story is over. And Lackham basically said the equivalent of, bitch, watch this. And turned herself into a Draco-Lich. As such, she then went around performing different tasks, doing all these things, no longer as a champion of Mystra, but as the first of the Ascended. And with this, she still always wanted to be divine. But she had had her shard of Mystra taken away from her. She didn't have it, as you guys had found out. There's no shard to take. So when the Ascended had begun being collected, and the caretaker was like, "You can take this even further. Walk as a person. Have the power of a god." While everyone else went into forms that naturally occurred to them, Lackham had it in her mind that she would create the perfect form. She never wanted to forget her draconic ancestry, but she still wanted to be divine. And as such, she crafted a body, half of her past and half of her future. Half Asimir, half Dragonborn.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had that shit on lock. I thought
that-
good and
that
long
book
about
at the end?
Lackham.
That book at the end that she was
Phylactery.
going to come out of?
She was coming back, yeah.
Yeah, luckily she didn't.
I was like, if James forgets about this, I'm going to mention it, and like the book's slightly moving, and then that's where the stream's gonna end, and you're all gonna fucking hate me. So
Instead, once again, Rem steps in and says, nope.
it's like, we should
I have
keep
a
this somewhere.
question, but
Actually,
not for
better
JC.
idea. Go for it.
I have a
Muting mic?
question for Helminia.
What?
What
Why?
did you do with the mantle?
I probably put it in like the royal treasury or something. Like I had no real claim to it, but I didn't want Mister to have it, so it's not going to her temple. But I probably had it locked up as like a state kept relic.
I did want that available.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's available.
All
I
of-
didn't-
Could
need it.
send
I
it
didn't-
with Zex and put it in the demi-plane with all the other available shit.
I'm sure it's so available anymore.
uh-huh.
The demi-plane exists beyond you.
The
I
demi-plane survives Zex no
specifically-
matter what.
I specifically
But can anyone
did
access it
some
without
stuff with
knowing
the
it's
demi-plane.
there?
Yes.
There's a door.
He specifically set it up to
specifically-
have a physical door that never closes.
Oh. Okay.
It has become its own dungeon. Maybe not necessarily dangerous. A little bit dangerous, but
A little bit dangerous.
a little bit dangerous.
There's some security measures.
Uh-huh. But that is, yeah, no, all of the relics, I know where they are. I know where they're going to end up. There's
Where's
no
the shield
guarantee.
going?
The shield you kept with you and is now an artifact in Icaria.
Yo!
It is mounted.
British Museum. Pause.
It's not even British Museum. It is mounted at the was it, I don't want to say back of the church, but where sermons are done, it silhouettes them.
I'm a saint, yo.
All right. Well, yeah.
So what happened? Like, what's the deal with all the original party members? What happened to each of them?
Like, how did you? Oh, you don't mean you guys in the original timeline. You mean
No, I mean,
as I lovingly, as I lovingly like to refer to them, the ABCs. What happened to them? Like, how did each of them meet their fate?
that and like just kind of who were they?
They were adventurers of opportunity. They are, with any good story, you needed heroes, and the people who were able to lock away the Ascended the first time. The big thing, though, is they did not have, instead of the backing of a goddess that is gaining power, they had the backing of a goddess who was quickly losing power, and they were playing a losing game. They were on a clock. The biggest thing is with the artifacts, with the Ascended operating at the full power, siphoning power from the gods, because the gods were available to them. They were losing, and so they had to do catastrophic things. Carmen's the easiest one to note. The bard girl that you guys got the Voice of the Wilds from. She dispatched by immobilizing not just Zavidnia, but her lieutenants, the corrupted Feywild creatures that were convinced by Zavidnia that they had rights to become the new overseers of the Feywild, giving herself up to a song to lock them away for the rest of time. Gordos, when he quote-unquote dies, explodes into a massive fire, if you guys remember. Gordos was actually one of the ones they went after first. Not a good idea.
Well, that was their first mistake.
We learned that the hard way.
And so they didn't know necessarily about transformations like how you guys did. And so when the fighter stabbed the man through the back and ran him through, they erupted in a flash of flame. Neither of them to be seen again. Don't get me wrong, Gordos takes a long time to be able to build back his body. But he would be able to do it either in the elemental plane of fire or the Nine Hells. And Gordos killed the guy.
Right.
He had no reason to go back for the others, and kind of cares the least about the other Ascended. Like, at least Lackham thinks of all the Ascended in a tactical sense. Gordos just is the best. That's his mind. And so, yeah, he was good and basically already a god in his own mind, so why not leave the legwork to the rest of them?
So, to be clear, two of them died fighting Gordos at the start, and the remaining two had to deal with all of the other ones?
No. The fighter died against Gordos at the beginning. At some point, when they were fighting Zavidnia, the bard basically stun-locked all of them, but she was locked herself down. It was never explained how the rogue died. The rogue, I thought it was kind of a cheeky reference that the rogue is talked about the least.
Rogue.
Rogue.
Exactly.
The drow.
I thought the last one was a fighter.
The fighter was the one who died with Gordos.
Right. I thought it was
There were 4 of them.
fighter, barbarian, sorcerer, cleric, multiclass, and bard.
No. So the D is the multi-class.
Mm-hmm.
And he had Blade of the Laura and the shield. He was a, if I remember correctly, like War Domain cleric. But he had what he needed. War Domain cleric with wizard. But there was a rogue, who specifically did not have. They were a little bit caught out with weapons. None of them quite fit them. However, one of the God-touched artifacts that you guys were using weren't exactly weren't being used by the party because it didn't exactly exist yet, which was the mantle. And I can already kind of hear through your silence a bit of confusion.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
no,
super
I get it.
confused because
So, and things get jumbled up, especially with you, James, just because I've had so many talks with you.
Mhm.
Things do kind of blend together when you get into 2 a.m. But they had went through, and basically they were able to, what they believed, stop the Ascendant.
Mhm.
And they did cripple them. They did absolutely cripple them. But they didn't stop them. That's the important part. And they had no idea truly how deeply the corruption led with the caretaker.
Right.
The caretaker flew over their heads, ironically, as a concept,
Mm-hmm.
where it almost did with you guys as well. And
I had so many conversations with Helminia where I was like, yo, the caretaker's like a thing. We're going to have to deal with it at some point. And I was like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. The caretaker's not real. It's a myth.
There
You're
is
making
no
it up.
caretaker in Greywall.
there is
I'm
no
like-
caretaker underneath Greywall.
There were so many times where I was like, dude, we have to deal with this.
Mhm.
And Hell's like, no, it just doesn't exist.
I remember when I started memeing and say Dracula's down there,
Kind
Yeah.
of.
and then something was actually down there. I'm like, I told you.
Yeah. I had to.
Greywall is short for Greywallachia. Dracula's
Wallachia.
down
I
there.
remember that joke. But yeah. No, the entire story of the original 4 is something else, and it's a lot of the story isn't necessarily set in stone for reasons that it hasn't been played out, and also because intentionally left vague because most of history doesn't exist from that time anymore. It's just legends.
Right.
Which, remember, I was talking about how you guys were becoming legends of your own, of your feats being a little bit, your physical capabilities being a little bit overblown, not by too much, I must add, but of one of you being able to level a city with a swing of a sword or something like that might be a little bit hard to recreate. It helped keep other nations from invading Paphlios about as much as Umberlee did with making the sea a living hell, but
I was just about to ask about it. What happened to the ocean?
Umberlee's wrecking havoc. Umberlee's having a fun time.
Have fun, I guess.
How
That's a shame.
long was Gordos at the Temple of the Brine?
You never actually knew the father.
Okay, but like, how long was he there?
He had been there for probably, oh God, I think I put it in my mind of like minimum 50 years, as he was trying to find a way to release the beast underneath the temple.
So Father Limerent at one point was a
real man.
dude.
Yes. It's the thing though of people take elves not dying for granted. And so
Yeah.
you have to remember, literally everyone else around him had a shorter lifespan. There was
Yeah.
specific care to mention that there were no other elves in the close circle that would have known him well. There was Minotaur, Halfling, humans, Tritons, but no one with a longer lifespan.
If there
for
were
some
other
reason.
elves, they didn't spend a lot of time there.
No. There were other of elvish descent or dwarven descent, but like they didn't know Father very well, like
Well,
the others
Umberly
did.
is a god that's to be feared and not really to be worshipped as much, and so it makes sense that there are just less people.
Mm-hmm.
Does Umberly ever come to yell at Suna just to fucking do it?
You ever go to yell at Umberly?
So
I don't have any personal beef
So-
with Umberly.
Umberly is a little bit more focused on her freedom at the moment.
I mean,
She is.
I got all the time in the world.
She probably would. You'd probably get a little bit from her of like, at some point in passing, she bemoans the fact that she was never able to kill any of you guys because you guys you never touch water anymore. Unfortunate, but I guess you earned a little bit of respite. It's a thing of she's as I had a little bit of a discussion with James during the Tuesday stream, like Umberly's enjoying her time now, especially since she was one of the few gods that weren't locked behind the Divine Gate. She was locked in a different plane. Getting to exert her influence over the material plane again is very fun for her.
It'll be safe to assume that will be an issue in Usapate then.
Maybe
If we ever decide to leave the continent.
Maybe. Possibly. Might be a plot point.
Oh no!
Sorry, guys.
The war. The war.
Sooner go take care of Umberly real quick for us.
Just go kill a god.
Hey, we
I
did it once.
I've done it once.
Do it again.
Do it again.
I have, along with the other four, I have a whole lot of more friends, I think. So
Mhm.
I think we could pull it off.
It's a thing.
Think-
No,
I
Umberly's.
think I could wipe out all belief of Umberly in a holy
Umberly,
crusade. I'll do it.
Umberly, I'm beginning to have like I'm not gonna say uncomfortable, like a, what's the thing? Unhealthy kind of relationship with making her lore personalized. You know I've spent an unhealthy amount of time talking about a god or a goddess if I can describe how they look and how they shift specifically in and out of a viewable form for a mortal.
Yeah.
So,
Which I thought is really cool.
thank you. That is something that I could actually go back on, and people was like, "Oh yeah, inspiration." I immediately felt there's so much art of the Greek gods and videos of the Greek gods, specifically because of Epic the Musical right now, that fucking blew what I was originally planning on having my description of the gods and goddesses out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And so I specifically redesigned Umberly like her in particular, I redesigned from the ground up to make it something more interesting visually and giving you guys something to think about. Cord also got a bit of the treatment. Vandria was good though. She was already peak.
She was a complete accident. There is no reason I should be following this deity whatsoever.
No.
But we couldn't find any other ones.
It is technically the biggest hole in the lore, and I've made it part of the world lore. So it's my world. So I get to do it how I want to.
Like the whole church in the middle of Aquaria, that shit wasn't supposed to happen. JC's like, I need backstory now, and I gave him too much, and he never stopped me. And now here we are.
Oh, here we are. No, we'll see. I'm sure our backstory stuff will be a little bit healthier next time.
Oh, for sure. Session 0.
Absolutely.
I haven't worked on that in a while.
Well,
I've done a little bit of workshopping.
I am constantly working on it, just by accident.
I do have an idea. I will need to get with you.
Of course. I've distinctly said I'm going to have one-on-one conversation with you guys, more than one, discuss things for the new campaign. All right, I'm giving kind of a last call kind of thing for questions, both for you guys and chat. Is there any other things that are burning your heart, your soul? If there's not, I've got one final question for you guys.
What do you got?
Papihos has been an exceptionally long campaign. Most people go to about level 10. We went twice that, and most games last half a year, and we managed to triple that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, more than triple, actually. However, this does mean that the story was constantly changing and evolving. As such, there have been several arcs that you guys have gotten to experience. There has been the city of Dartmouth, the Dartmouth arc. Lichten's arc with the undead and failed lich. Imposter with Findhelm and Tilvium, the tournament arc in the Halls of Glory, tracking Phantom Light and ending up at Forminos, where you lost a companion but gained a new one. Of course, Black Knights, stealing away Terra, Tyron, Sora, and the like. One of the largest at its time, Tiber and Formount. Abra's Duel, the World Eater. Decaria, and by extension, the kidnapping and retrieval of Barris. The city of Dentor and our venture in the underground. Searching for all of the divine weapons, the Temple of the Brine, and then finally, last but I hope not least, the Seven Ascended in the Caretaker. Out of all of these arcs, the massive amount of story and grief and trauma that I've put you guys through, which arc stands out to you, and why?
Certainly, so Tiber most certainly stands out. Just because it kind of felt like, it almost felt like the tone shifted for a sec. Like, we were doing, if I remember correctly, we were in Forminos, we lost April, we hop back down to Greywall for a sec, Rem kills Gil, brings Gil back, I think they get kidnapped by the Black Knights. And then we hop back up to Formount to deal with Tiber. and it was like, oh, we're doing hero things, just whatever. And then all of a sudden we're leading a rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it was like a weird, not weird. It was like a shift for a second. And I think we spent a lot of time there compared to some of our other arcs. The Temple of Brine arc always stands out, but I might be biased. And then the Seven Ascended arc will always stand out.
Mm-hmm. I was really partial to the Abraz Duel arc and Tiber arc. I felt like they both had really good narrative roots and were just super fun to play out.
Mm.
And there was so much world building for both of them that it was just fantastic.
I think the Hunting the Lost City arc was kind of cool too.
Mm-hmm.
Of just like, we told people about it and they're like, okay, now go find it. And then we had to go and find it when some of us didn't even believe in it at the time. Like Gil didn't believe it until he was inside of it. And then just going through that of a house falling on Gil. The first one of the first artillery strikes that happened to Rem just by virtue of being there. The sentient pants, the mummies, and just meeting Lackham and going through those rooms for the first time. That, like, when the Lackham threat became like real, I think was also like a big tone shift of like, okay, like this is bigger than we thought it was.
Confirmation that they exist.
Yeah.
Again, it reminds me of when Nime and I jumped off from the top of that room, and I failed a deck save and immediately hit the fucking floor.
Yeah.
And then you almost got Finger of Death right afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I could have pulled off that second vortex warp, but I fucking failed a deck save.
It would have been
Classic Suna.
Mm-hmm.
Classic Suna.
Always failing saves.
What about you, Jazz?
My favorite arc was... I don't even know if it's necessarily considered an arc, but I really liked doing the like fair games thing.
Where everything's right in the world.
Fire.
The Festival
Yeah.
of Fire.
The Festival of Fire, right before the Seven Ascended shit happened. That was my favorite because everything was amazing and happy, and we all dressed up and went out, and it was just a good time, and then it all turned to shit.
I gotta build you up before I bring you down.
That was so sad. But anyways, I would say that it was probably my favorite, but I also really liked... Man, where were we right when Nime joined? We were doing the Lost City, or she joined way before that too.
It was right at the Lost City.
Yeah.
It was right before, yeah.
Heroes Crossing Paths. It was you met Nime being sent to the city. Like being told to go to the city.
The Lost City was really cool. And then fighting the dragon too. Fighting the dragon was really fun. There were a lot of good ones, a lot of good arcs. They mostly stood out to me. The ones that I had said so far stood out to me the most because I felt like there was a lot of there was a lot to do in those arcs. Where like Seven Ascended was very combat focused, Like I've said previously in this stream, that I for one am not keen on combat. Not because like it's bad, and I think every D&D game should have combat. I personally am just bad at it. So I just don't love it for myself, but I love it when people engage in combat. But the ones that I really liked weren't like super combat focused, and I think that's why like I really liked them.
Gotcha. Well, and because I know that like for the two arcs that you had mentioned of the Lost City and Abra's Duel, you guys approached like because of Lackham and the Dragon, you guys approached those of these are fights we can't win, or these are fights we can't win by ourselves. And so it structured it in a different context.
Mm-hmm.
For
Exactly,
Lackham, it was survival. For the other one, it's how can we set up in the most advantageous way possible. And it was a spectacle. It was a spectacle fight, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys did brilliant with it. There was always thoughts in my head of when I was talking to you guys of like, yeah, let's see what the game goes to. There are always options for me to come back to Papihos, but the story that you guys have made has been so good, and I've loved it so much. I want to make sure that no matter what, the Stream Team Papihos game is the biggest story told in Papihos at this time. We might come back to Papihos in the future. James has heard a bit, and I believe the rest of you have heard a bit. I know at the very least Alpha has, of Age of Silence.
Yeah.
Just being a concept, but I feel like that might be a little bit too hardcore mode for some people. But there's always options, and Papihos is my baby, if not the entire world that I've been able to make with you guys. Well, guys, that does it. The questions have finally been able to be asked and be answered. We've always been able to ask them. I've just had to keep my mouth shut. And for the time being, unless if I'm stealing streams from a player's perspective from Jazz, I think I think Thursday's going to be a little bit quiet on this channel for now on.
I say that I just multi-stream. I stream
I
on
just-
your channel and my channel at the same time. It's not happening.
It's not happening. I might steal. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. But you'll hopefully be able to see a couple streams, probably not this month, on Saturday. Twitch is just my random streaming platform, but there will always be YouTube streams. There's still the final episode to come out next week for Rerun, and then this one. But as always, and until we see you in another stream, thank you everybody so much for watching. My name is JC, and I will see you in another video or stream. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Bye, guys.